Enjoy your time here and find peace in the stories we tell. If you liked the story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel. On the day the golden list of exam results was posted, I went to fetch my intoxicated older brother, Arthur Meng. Unexpectedly, I overheard him questioning his friend, Adrian Pei. Now that you have become the top scholar, isn't it time to go to the house of that young lady you have been keeping hidden to propose marriage? Adrian, reeking of alcohol, sneered and said, "First, there is no command from my parents. Second, there are no words from a matchmaker. It was just playing for fun, it does not count." I stood outside the folding screen, clutching my handkerchief tightly. 2 years of love and solemn vows, it turned out, were all just a game. The waiter, pouring wine, pulled the screen open, instantly exposing me to everyone's gaze. My brother Arthur froze for a moment before hurriedly pulling me inside. "It is so late. Why have you come?" I suppressed the bitterness in my heart and spoke with difficulty. "The family sent a carriage to pick you up, and I wanted to eat the dim sum from Fujiao Tower, so I came along." The dim sum was just an excuse. I only wanted to see Adrian as soon as possible. During the day, the results were posted. Arthur passed as an imperial scholar and gathered with 3 or 5 friends to celebrate. Such an occasion naturally could not lack Adrian. After the examination, he followed his father to war and only returned to the city a few days ago. We had not yet had time to meet. It was hard to find a reason, so I spent 2 hours at home combing my hair and applying makeup. I came here full of joy, never expecting to hear words that would embarrass me so much. As for Adrian, whom I miss day and night, at this moment, he was wearing an official hat pinned with a golden flower and a crimson robe. He truly looked like a high, spirited young man. However, as soon as he saw me, the smile on his face vanished and his eyes avoided mine. Arthur kept a straight face and waved for the dancers to withdraw. Someone teased, "Oh, the little sister has arrived. Does that mean we brothers cannot have fun anymore?" Arthur poured me a cup of tea and laughed, scolding them. "Watch your vulgar language. Do not corrupt my little sister. She has never been to a place like this. You consider your sister so important, no wonder she is not yet married. I bet you rejected every type of brother-in-law, did you not?" Arthur raised his eyes and looked around, finally stopping on Adrian, who was silent. "In this group, only Adrian is decent. He is the legitimate son of the Pei Duke, with a dignified appearance, and now the new top scholar. However, hearing what you just said, it is true that heartless men are mostly scholars. Let us just forget it. It was just a joke." But Adrian's face turned cold. He raised his wine cup, drank it all in one go, glanced at me out of the corner of his eye, then quickly looked away and said, "Do not talk nonsense. Arthur's sister is my sister." What a fine phrase, my sister. I stared blankly at Adrian, my eyes gradually stinging. Everyone knew he had a beloved whom he kept hidden. Every time he came to the restaurant, amidst the teasing of his friends, he would pack a portion of dim sum that the lady liked to take back. The high-quality white fox fur obtained during the hunt, despite many noble ladies asking for it, he tactfully refused them all. The clumsily embroidered fragrance pouch at his waist he had never taken off for years. Even Arthur had once said, "Adrian is truly crazy, treating such an ugly fragrance pouch as a treasure." Just because the young master of the Li family touched it once, if no one had stopped him, I fear he would have charged straight to the Li estate to demand justice. Tisk, things given by a beloved are indeed different. They did not know that the so-called beloved was me. Those portions of dim sum were all delivered through the back door of the Meng Manor, straight into my hands. The fox fur coat was now lying on the chaise lounge in my room, and the fragrance pouch was also made by my own hands. It was treated by Adrian as a rare treasure. Although our customs were open and men and women sitting together was common, private exchange of tokens before marriage was still forbidden. As a noble lady, how could I not understand this principle? It was just that Adrian was too good, so good that even though I knew clearly that this was disgracing my family, I was still willing to secretly associate with him. This was only because he said the legitimate daughter of the Meng Prime Minister must marry a man who has achieved fame and success. He said he would wait until the day his name was on the golden list to announce it to the world and marry me with great glory. I believed in that without a doubt, until I heard those words he just said. "Just playing for fun, it does not count." "Celia." In my panic, my brother suddenly called me. "Why are you looking at brother Adrian?" I hurriedly withdrew my gaze and pretended to lower my head to drink tea. People at the banquet laughed and teased. "Adrian is still the one who wins the hearts of young ladies the most." Look, Celia is staring blankly. Not only does he win hearts, but he also breaks them. Did Celia not hear just now? Your brother Adrian has a private affair. We all thought he loved her so much he could not let go, but who would have expected him to say that the girl clung to him herself? It is nothing more than a romantic fling. He never thought about proposing marriage. Teskask, we asked which family the young lady belonged to, but you refused to say. Could it be that her family background is unpresentable? She is only worthy for you, the top scholar, to keep as a mistress. Such a woman, secretly having an affair with a man outside, knows no shame. Who cares about her family background? If Adrian gets tired of playing, he can just throw her away. Nuff. Adrian's deep voice cut through, and he heavily slammed his wine cup onto the table. Everyone present immediately fell silent. Arthur looked at him with displeasure and asked, "It is a day of great joy. We are just joking a few words. Why are you getting angry? Could it be that you were provoked by Princess Isabella?" My hand trembled, and the tea in my cup splashed out. Has Princess Isabella, who was sent to the barbarian lands for a peace marriage, returned? Adrian cast a warning glance, his voice low. The matter of Isabella returning to the country is currently a secret. Do not let outsiders know. Except for me, the rest of them showed no surprise. Obviously, they had known for a long time. So you are saying I am an outsider? Arthur chuckled. Whenever Isabella is mentioned, you become tense. Have you still not let go of her in your heart? Under the flickering silk lantern light, Adrian lowered his eyes and did not speak to refute. Perhaps because the candlelight was too glaring, my eyes hurt so much that I almost wanted to shed tears. I hurriedly found an excuse to go out for some fresh air. Leaning on the railing and looking into the distance, before my eyes were the lights of 10,000 homes, and behind me was the noise and excitement. There was a time when Adrian stood in this very spot, secretly hugging me from behind. He pointed towards the southwest, where the Duke's estate was, and whispered in my ear, "One day, you will be the young mistress of my Pei family." Yet now, he disdainfully said he never had any intention of proposing marriage. Thinking of that, my tears suddenly fell. No matter how much I used my handkerchief, I could not wipe them dry. Familiar footsteps sounded behind me. "Celia!" Adrian called me. "The night is late and the dew is heavy. You should go back." Because I wanted to meet him, I had specially changed into a thin pink silk dress that he had once praised as beautiful. The night wind penetrated the thin gauze, blowing over every inch of my skin, cold enough to make me tremble slightly. However, Adrian stood far away, unlike before when he would take off his cloak to drape over my shoulders. I did not turn my head, only asking, "Do you have nothing you want to explain to me?" After a long silence, he finally spoke in a tone pretending to be light-hearted. "It was just a joke between men. Why must you take it as truth?" I turned around to face his slightly annoyed face and spoke with difficulty. "A joke? If you were talking about Princess Isabella just now, would you still consider it a joke?" Hearing that name, his face immediately darkened. He instinctively spoke in a cold voice. "Isabella has a noble status. Who dares to speak presumptuously? Everything was fine. Do not drag her into this." Sure enough, Isabella was his sensitive spot. Just mentioning her name, Adrian immediately retracted his usual gentleness, his eyes cold as if looking at an irrelevant person. Tears fell drop by drop. I asked Adrian with a trembling voice, "If you already had someone in your heart, why did you come to provoke me?" He did not wipe my tears, only looking at me with a gaze that was almost pitying, saying, "I thought you knew that I never let go of Isabella." It turned out that my tears could not fall into his heart either. The pain was like being sliced by 1,000 cuts, cutting into my body one by one. My throat was so bitter that I could not utter another word. Just then, an attendant ran over and whispered something in Adrian's ear. "Princess Isabella says." I only saw the corners of his lips curve up slightly. The gloom on his face instantly vanished. Without a word of explanation, or even a glance at me, he flicked his sleeves and left. The wind roared in my ears as if screaming, "Look, Adrian never liked you. It was just unrequited love, swallowing the bitter fruit by yourself." When I had arranged my emotions and returned to the room, everyone was discussing Princess Isabella. Back then, the situation was turbulent, and the Wuhan tribe invaded. Isabella had no choice but to use a marriage alliance to exchange for peace. That year, when Adrian heard this news, he almost lost half his life. Do not mention those national humiliations. Sigh, now that the new emperor has ascended the throne, the national power is growing stronger, yet the Wuhan tribe still dares to disturb the border. His Majesty personally appointed the Pay Duke to go on a campaign to quell the rebellion and let Adrian personally welcome Isabella back. This time, his clouds have cleared and the moon can be seen. That is right, in the future, he will not need to drag us out to drink until the third watch, getting drunk and shouting about going to the Wu Huan tribe to snatch Isabella back. Ha ha ha. Last year, on Isabella's birthday, he even secretly went to visit her. 10 days of riding through wind and rain, just to exchange for standing from afar and looking at Isabella once. I thought Adrian had long let go and could actually achieve a happy ending with that little lover of his. Men are very good at pretending to be deeply in love. I did not expect that someone as cautious as Adrian could use alcohol to say such words. I expected even less that the time he said he was closing his door to concentrate on studying turned out to be him going to meet Isabella. So, what was I doing at that time? I pricked my 10 fingertips until they were bloody to sew protective knee pads for him. They continued to speak. They said that in his study, the entire wall was covered with portraits of Isabella. They said that every month, he would ride a fast horse to send letters to the Wu Han tribe. I covered my eyes, my tears soaking the handkerchief, my palm a patch of dampness. Young Master Shang, who liked eating and playing the most, sighed with emotion. That girl is truly pitiful. If she followed me, at least she could get the status of a concubine. Now she can only watch helplessly as Adrian marries the princess, while she goes to find a white silk strip to hang herself. Everyone roared with laughter. I bowed my head in shame, tears falling onto my silk skirt. Arthur adjusted his expression and looked at me, saying, "Girls are the easiest to deceive. Not only does it bring shame to the family, but you also cannot avoid regret and heartbreak. Celia, you must open your eyes wide, do not easily trust men." Adrian acted too well. Not only did I believe him, but even Arthur, who was with him day and night, almost believed him too. Deep affection is an illusion difficult to distinguish, only my pain at this moment knows no lies. I nodded and replied in a voice so low it was almost inaudible. "Yes, I will not believe any more." The wine had gone 3 rounds when the waiter said Adrian had left. The celebration banquet was originally centered around him, yet he left without even saying hello. It was said he even took the chef from Jiangnan in the restaurant with him. Everyone revealed a look of understanding. Isabella used to like the crispy flaky pastry the most. He was probably afraid it would get cold if he brought it over, so he wanted the chef to make it on the spot. Adrian truly has a heart. The dancers were dismissed, and everyone lost interest, so they scattered perfunctorily. Tonight, Arthur drank quite a lot. He walked unsteadily and finally had to be supported into the carriage by his attendant, his mouth still rambling. Do not listen to those people talking nonsense. It does not matter if you do not marry, stay in the Meng manor for your whole life, I can support you. I was 19 years old this year. 2 years ago, the noble young masters coming to propose marriage trampled the threshold, but I rejected them one by one. I turned a deaf ear to the gossip outside and the advice of my parents at home, setting my heart only on waiting for Adrian to come and marry me with glory. I originally set my heart towards the bright moon, but who knew the moon would shine into the muddy ditch? I had gathered so much courage to go against etiquette once, yet it turned into foam, a wasted effort. Thinking of this, I could not help but smile bitterly, looking up at the bright moon on the horizon and feeling sad for myself. Seeing that I did not respond, Arthur breathed out a sigh of alcohol. Little Gord keeps her mouth shut and stops talking. "Ah, my sister, everything about you is good, except your personality is a bit too quiet. You and Isabella are worlds apart." Hearing that name, my fingers twisting the handkerchief suddenly tightened. Isabella used to be the little princess most doted on by the late emperor, and now she is the noble eldest princess. Naturally, you cannot compare with her. Silly girl, I am not comparing you with her. I am just afraid that in the future, you will suffer a loss and not be able to speak up. Now father is in the position of prime minister, and I have also passed as an imperial scholar. In the future, you will be the noble lady with the most say in the capital. I would rather you be unruly and willful than keep everything bottled up inside. Every word was sincere. Listening to him made my nose sting, and a sudden urge rose in my heart to tell him everything. I turned my face, intending to speak, but Arthur had already tilted his head against the window and fallen asleep. Let it be, there was nothing worth saying anyway. After all, I had been silent and of few words since I was young. If there was anything, I would just swallow it inside. It did not matter if I swallowed broken teeth mixed with blood. Memories uncontrollably drifted back to my childhood. Arthur and I were not considered very close when we were young. He was 4 years older than me. Since I had memories, he had entered the palace to be a reading companion for the crown prince. As for me, at the age of 8, I was also chosen by Princess Isabella to be a playmate. Before entering the palace, my parents constantly instructed me to be careful in my speech and actions, and absolutely not to offend the little princess. I treated Isabella like a master with fear and trepidation. In daily interactions, only sentences like yes, princess and princess, be careful, remained. This subject is terrified, and be cautious in every detail. I understood these principles. From the age of 8, Isabella gradually lost interest in me, and turned to cling to the reading companions who were also in the deep palace. She did not put on the airs of a princess, and her personality was overly adorable, easily winning everyone's favor. Arthur was like that, and so was Adrian. They led Isabella to play card tossing, cricket fighting, and butterfly catching, their eyes full of doting and appreciation. What was I doing at that time? I only timidly followed behind, never invited to join. Even though my eyes were full of admiration, I did not have a shred of courage to step forward. Just like that, I was forgotten from one spring to summer, autumn, and winter. Adrian was the first person to truly see me. On the Lantern Festival when I was 10 years old, they held all kinds of lanterns, fighting to present them before Isabella. Princess, look at my lion lantern, you will definitely like it. Or take my carp lantern. I ran all over the capital to specially find it for you, princess. Even my brother, Arthur, only prepared one lantern for Isabella. The flickering candlelight made my eyes turn red. I was used to all of this. I just stood absently from afar watching. Suddenly, a round rabbit lantern appeared before my eyes. Adrian held up the lantern, smiled, and asked me, "Do you like rabbits? I will give it to you." He was like the moon hanging high, sharing a bit of moonlight to illuminate my insecure and awkward youth. From gratitude to admiration, then to being moved, my feelings were like a trickling stream, gradually converging into a vast ocean, but I never dared to ask for anything. Every time I blushed and stole a glance at Adrian, his gaze would gently rest on Isabella. That was a kind of intense, forbearing affection, exactly like mine. Until Isabella went for the marriage alliance, it was said that Adrian was depressed for a long time, drunk and dreaming all day. Arthur could not stand it anymore and dragged him back to the Meng Manor. A man must have great ambitions in all 4 directions. Is it worth delaying your official career for love? Those words could not wake Adrian. He did not say a word, only lowering his head to drink wine. I rushed into the room, twisting my sleeves tightly, and said, "Brother Adrian, Isabella going for the marriage alliance is already a foregone conclusion. If our nation prospers rises in the future, she will be admired by thousands in the Wuhuan tribe." His ashed, gray eyes finally lit up a little. His gaze rested on my face for a very long time. From then on, he did not mention Isabella again, and even transferred to the Meng family's school to concentrate on studying. Watching his literary talent flow and listening to his debates where he never lost ground, I sat behind him thinking that such a man would surely establish merit and leave his name for 1,000 years. We gradually became close. I asked him about studies, and he gave me a jade hairpin and an inkstone. That was enough. I was not greedy. It was not until 2 years ago that he picked up my handkerchief. When returning it, he suddenly asked, "Celia, do you want to go for a boat ride?" His ears turned red, his expression tense, and he added, "Just the 2 of us." At that time, I was infinitely grateful, thinking that even the gods were favoring me. But at this moment, I finally understood. Favor. No, even the gods did not see me in the dark corner. That night, catching a cold wind, I was sick for more than half a month. Actually, I had recovered long ago, I just used illness as an excuse not to see people. However, my brother Arthur visited my room every day. Afraid I was bored, he thought of ways to tell me stories from the outside. "You did not see yesterday, Adrian rode a tall horse parading through the streets, looking very majestic. I heard his essay was praised by that person in the palace. He will be heavily used in the future." Round and round, the conversation still returned to Adrian. I listened with a bitter heart, so I used the excuse that the medicine was too bitter and sent him to buy candied fruits. Unexpectedly, he returned soon after. He was a step too late. Adrian had bought all the candied fruits in the shops in the south of the city to bring into the palace, just to please Isabella. "Last time he said he treated you like a biological sister. I told him you were seriously ill and asked for some candied fruit, but he refused." Tesk this time. Compared to the bitterness of the medicine, the bitterness in my heart was heavier. I could only force a smile and ask, Why did he buy so much? It is not necessarily just for Isabella to eat. Today the palace holds a mid-autumn banquet, also to announce the princess's return to the country. He even asked if you would attend like every year, telling you to rest well so you do not bring sickness into the palace and infect His Majesty. Outsiders would hear this and think Adrian was being thoughtful for me, but he was afraid. He was afraid I would show something unusual in front of everyone, afraid Isabella would realize this secret love. Perhaps he wished to lock me in my boudoir forever, never letting me get close to Isabella. Suddenly, I did not want to fake illness anymore. Brother, I am almost recovered. Take me to the palace tonight. It has been a long time since I went. After my coming-of-age ceremony, every time I attended a grand banquet, I was pulled by the noble madams to be inspected. Their words were all about the nephews and sons of marriageable age in their families. I was tired of dealing with it, so I simply found excuses to refuse them all. This time, the moon viewing banquet was on an even larger scale, with drums rumbling and bright lights everywhere. After sitting down with my brother, my eyes involuntarily searched for Adrian, but instead met Isabella's gaze from the front. 3 years without seeing her, her appearance was still the same, only more beautiful and moving. I immediately lowered my head, but she still spotted me. She shooed away the noble ladies surrounding her, lifted her skirt and ran toward me. Celia, you came. I stood up to bow respectfully, but she supported me with one hand. Our friendship does not need these empty rituals. Arthur raised his eyebrows. Princess, do you not see me? Why did you run past me straight to Celia? Since I returned, I have seen you 3 times already. This is the first time I am seeing Celia. She tilted her head, teasing Arthur. Her clear laughter and the swaying ornament on her head looked lively and adorable. She made Arthur cover his mouth and laugh, his eyes full of doting that could not be hidden. The hall was brightly lit, but I felt as if everything around me had gone dark. In this moment, I seemed to return to my childhood. Isabella's natural liveliness and undeniable presence were exactly what I lacked and what I craved the most. I stared at her blankly, my emotions too complex to put into words. After what happened with Adrian, seeing her again wasn't exactly sad, but there wasn't much joy either. In my days, Adrian arrived. In the crowd, he found Isabella at a glance, joy overflowing in his eyes. Catching sight of me out of the corner of his eye, his steps paused for a moment. As expected of the #1 young master in the capital, he quickly retracted his emotions, smiled, and approached. I arrived a bit late. This is the most beautiful flower lantern in the capital. I do not know if you like it. He took out a carp lantern hidden behind his back, presenting it like a treasure to Isabella. Adrian truly had a good memory, still remembering all of Isabella's childhood hobbies. But why did he forget my wish? At the beginning of the year, while praying for blessings, I closed my eyes before the gods and sincerely wished for him to pass the exams and marry me soon. Even without fame, he should come to marry me. When I opened my eyes at that moment, Adrian beside me was still praying earnestly. He asked me what I wished for. I did not want to burden him, so I only said that after the examinations ended, we would row a boat at night to watch the stars. At that time, he must give me a rabbit lantern. I asked him what he prayed to the gods for, but he just smiled and said nothing. Silly, if you say the wish out loud, it won't work anymore. Whether his wish was to be with me without doubt, or to reconnect with Isabella, did not matter anymore. Looking at his current appearance, his eyes filled with someone else's shadow, it definitely was not the former. Oh, it is round and chubby, so cute. Isabella held the lantern, examining it left and right, liking it so much she could not put it down. It is even better than the lotus lantern you asked someone to bring to the Wuhan tribe for me last year. Hearing this, Adrian cast a wary glance at me. That look stabbed into my chest, making me suffocate. I asked in a hoarse voice, he often gave you things. Yes, Wuhan lacks supplies. My ruche fabric hairpins and bracelets, as well as the paintings and embroidery patterns popular in the capital, all relied on brother Adrian. No wonder. No wonder he always asked me what was currently popular among noble ladies, and what styles they liked. I had never thought much of it, assuming he wanted to give gifts to the sisters in his family. But I gave gifts back. I gave him the special spices from Wuhan. He always carries that scent pouch. Following Isabella's finger, I looked at the scent pouch at Adrian's waist. Brother Adrian had said his scent pouch was old and asked me to make a new one, claiming I did not know how to make one. It turned out that what he treasured as a gem was not the scent pouch I embroidered stitch by stitch, but the spices inside. Seeing me staring blankly at the pouch at his waist, Adrian touched his nose and turned away unnaturally. My fingernails dug fiercely into my palm. I forced myself to face his defensive gaze and sneered. This embroidery style does not look like the work of a professional embroiderer. Could it be a gift from some young lady? Adrian's face stiffened. He coughed lightly twice and turned his head away. Fortunately, Isabella did not intend to pry. She looked toward a tall man in black robes standing in the distance and immediately lifted her skirt to run off. Uncle Dorian Xiao is here. I will go over there first. Waiting for her to leave, Adrian found an excuse to send Arthur away, then took me to the Imperial Garden. The servants were all on duty at the banquet, so the back garden was unusually quiet, with only the sound of rustling leaves around us. He frowned tightly, his mind focused on my provocative words just now. Usually you are the gentlest. Why are you making trouble now? The cold wind made my eyes sting slightly. I closed my eyes to hold back the burning sensation and asked softly, not daring to let me appear before Isabella. What exactly are you afraid of? He froze, his eyes avoiding mine. I have nothing to fear. A man's reputation does not affect his official career. I am hiding all of this for the sake of your reputation. Do you understand? What a fine excuse, saying it is for me. For half a month, I thought my mood had calmed down a lot. If he could have spoken clearly to me, I had intended to break up peacefully. For my own dignity, and for the reputation of the Meng family, there was no need to fall out with the new top scholar, who had a boundless future. For the lantern from when I was 10 years old that once illuminated me, and for him in his youth being like a bright moon hanging high, I did not want to make things too ugly. But his words were too grandiose, and the cold strangeness in his brow and eyes made me feel as if I had never known him. It wasn't that I was unwilling, I just couldn't figure it out. Adrian, why was it me? If he just wanted to find some amusement, a boring person like me was not the best choice. He lowered his eyes and looked at me for a long time, finally revealing a look of unbearable pity, and sighed. Because you cannot hide your feelings. You are very much like I was back then. Consider it the mutual comfort of disappointed people. But for the past 2 years, I thought I played my part well. Others have crowds of wives and concubines, lingering in brothels. I kept myself strictly for you, never crossing the line of propriety with you. So it turned out he was pitying me. The cold wind blew away all the thoughts in my heart, and finally, I heard the sound of my heartstrings snapping. The high-hanging bright moon ultimately fell into the mud. The starlight I thought belonged only to me turned out to be just mud splattered on my body. Nuff, who needs your pity? Adrian, from now on, we have no relation to each other. Hearing that a lover has 2 hearts, I came to sever ties. I said the words Adrian dared not say. He seemed relieved of a heavy burden and exhaled lightly, reaching out to tuck a lock of hair behind my ear, but I turned my head to avoid it. I only heard him whisper very softly, in the future, we will see each other often. You are still my sister. What a fine sister. Who wants to be that? I was about to refute when music came from the distance. I feared the banquet was about to begin. He sighed and flicked his sleeves to leave. Walk a few steps behind me so others do not get suspicious. After he left, I finally could not hold on anymore. My whole body went soft, and I squatted on the ground and burst into tears. It seemed I merged with the gloom around me, returning to the forgotten corner of my childhood. The dream woke up, it was just a passing shadow of a wild goose. I did not know how long I cried when a human voice sounded from behind a tree. Your Highness, the young emperor has arrived. I looked in the direction of the voice and saw the tall back of a man in black robes, standing like a mountain. My mind was in chaos. I even forgot how long he had been standing there, or how much he had heard. Throughout the palace, the only man who wore a black python robe was the former crown prince, the current regent Dorian. The night was deep, and one could not see their hand in front of their face in the garden. Perhaps he saw nothing. I wiped my tears perfunctorily, trying to make myself more sober, but found it difficult to go back. The path was winding and quiet. Even with the moonlight, it was hard to distinguish the way under my feet. Fortunately, at this time, a palace maid carrying a lantern came to find me. Miss Meng, the banquet has already started. Please return quickly and watch your step. She led me back to the main hall. Arthur looked worried. Where did you go? I was worried to death, but I dared not leave my seat without permission. Did you not send a servant to find me? Arthur looked confused. Obviously, it was not him. Seeing him look at my swollen eyes, intending to ask, I hurriedly avoided it and said, Do not talk anymore, His Majesty is looking. On the vermilion and gold throne, the little emperor, not yet 3 years old, was nodding off. Dorian sat behind him to the right. He rotated his wrist, toying with a wine cup, carrying bit of lazy casualness. I had not seen him for a very long time. A few years ago, he was still that crown prince of noble character. The late emperor was in poor health and had few heirs. He only had Princess Isabella under his knees. To stabilize the country, he established Dorian, his young brother born of the same mother, as the crown prince. My brother and Adrian were both his reading companions. I heard them say that Dorian had been a brilliant talent since childhood, although he was only a year older than them. When everyone else was still shaking their heads reading basic primers, he was already proficient in the classics of the sages and discussed national policy like playing chess. However, the current little emperor was established as the crown prince as soon as he was born, so Dorian lost hope of succeeding to the throne. Yet, after the late emperor passed away, he became the regent. All memorials had to pass through his hands first. A casual sentence from him was no different from an imperial decree. In the court, praise and criticism of him were mixed. Some said he ruled with method and opened up a prosperous era. Others said he held power over the court and the wild, covering the sky with one hand. Compared to his noble and elegant appearance in the past, he now seemed to have added a few degrees of ruthlessness. Seemingly noticing my gaze, he suddenly looked up, leaning slightly forward. His scrutinizing eyes were as if I were the wine cup being toyed with in his hand. A cold chill immediately swept through my entire body. Intuition told me that Dorian had seen everything that happened in the imperial garden. I wished I could find a crack in the ground to crawl into. My face was burning hotter than the warmed wine. Suddenly, an arrow shot out from nowhere, and the scene instantly fell into chaos. Protect the emperor. Dorian's eyes were sharp and cold. He raised his sleeve to shield the screaming little emperor. With his other hand, he threw the wine cup straight out, knocking down an arrow that grazed past my ear. Arthur immediately shielded me behind him. Instinctively, I turned my head to look at Adrian not far away. He rushed toward Isabella, who was surrounded by several guards, so panicked his hair was disheveled. In times of danger, a person's first choice will never lie. My eyes could not help but sting again, but I could not find my handkerchief, so I had to use my sleeve to cover my eyes. Fortunately, the crisis was quickly resolved. The assassin in black on the beam saw the assassination failed and quickly retreated. Dorian immediately sent people to pursue and escorted the little emperor away. The officials were still fearful, taking their families to bid farewell and leave the banquet. The main hall became quiet in an instant. Only then did Adrian cast an apologetic look at me, but as if afraid of being seen by others, he hurriedly avoided my gaze. In my daze, Arthur pulled me to the center of the hall, bowing to express gratitude. Thank you, Prince Regent, for lending a hand to save us. This is my sister from home. I do not know if you remember her. I was trying to avoid him, but unexpectedly, I was pushed in front of him by Arthur. What would Dorian say? That a noble daughter's conduct was improper, or that the Meng family taught their daughter poorly. Surprisingly, he said nothing, only narrowing his eyes, his imposing manner fully oppressive. Arthur laughed awkwardly. It is understandable if the prince does not remember. She has been of few words since childhood and hasn't entered the palace for years. That is right, perhaps Dorian did not remember me at all. Since childhood, I only followed behind Isabella, bowing respectfully. Moreover, it was late at night just now. He might not have seen my face clearly. I breathed a long sigh of relief in my heart, but in the next moment, that breath got stuck in my throat. I remember. She has grown a bit. Dorian looked down at me, his eyes black as jade carrying an invisible pressure. Stepping closer, I was finished. I dared not raise my head, my hands clutching the hem of my clothes, trembling uncontrollably. Luckily, Isabella spoke up in time. All right, Celia was just frightened. Uncle Dorian, do not look at her with such scary eyes. The corners of Dorian's showed a teasing smile. Am I very scary? Isabella laughed dryly. Every day you are either cold as ice or look like you want to eat people. Even I am scared, let alone Celia. Dorian nodded thoughtfully and said, do not be afraid. I am not a Rakshasa. I will not eat people. His gaze did not avoid mine, looking straight at me as if these words were spoken privately to me. The more I looked, the scarier it was. The atmosphere froze for a moment. Fortunately, everyone present was experienced and laughed along, saying, the prince is just joking. I was constantly on edge, worried that Dorian would expose something, shrinking my neck and daring not to speak. Arthur anxiously pulled at my sleeve. Dorian not only did not get angry but smiled even more wantonly. Still the same as when she was young, timid as a quail. As soon as the words fell, Adrian could not smile anymore. He hesitated for a long time, his voice sounding a bit composed. Celia hasn't entered the palace for a long time. Could it be she had a friendship with the Prince Regent before? Dorian glanced at him, his expression immediately turning cold. Even Isabella dared not say anything more, and the banquet ended hastily. Adrian said he did not take a carriage into the palace and wanted to go out with us. While waiting for Arthur to call the carriage driver, he hesitated for a moment, approaching me as if wanting to say something. You and the Prince Regent. Before he could finish, he was interrupted by the palace maid carrying the lantern walking over. Miss Meng, you dropped your handkerchief. I took the handkerchief and thanked the maid, but she handed me the lantern in her hand. It is too dark. My master told me to give this to you. It was a palace lantern shaped like a rabbit. The whole body was smooth and moist like jade, looking exquisite and noble, unlike something a servant would use. I looked at the maid's face and only then discovered she was the one who went to the imperial garden to find me earlier. But in the palace, apart from Isabella, I had no other close acquaintances. Is it from Princess Isabella? The maid did not answer, only bowed and left. Adrian leaned closer, observing the lantern intently. It definitely is not from Isabella. This rabbit looks petty, it is not like something she likes. I sneered in my heart. He remembered Isabella for so many years, yet it turned out he had forgotten the rabbit lantern from when I was 10 years old. Let it be, there was nothing left to say. I glanced at him coldly and did not reply. On the way back to the manor, Arthur mentioned Isabella to Adrian. Their relationship had always been very close, so Arthur dared to ask and speak, completely without intention of avoiding me. Did you deal with your little lover cleanly? Isabella is someone who cannot tolerate even a grain of sand in her eye. Adrian showed a look of embarrassment, stole a glance at me, and did not say much. When will we drink your wedding wine? It must be soon, right? He seemed a bit annoyed, rubbing the space between his eyebrows, and only replied, it hasn't reached that point yet, let's talk about it later. Arthur was a bit drunk and especially talkative tonight, telling Adrian things like, losing it and regaining it is the greatest happiness in life. The more he spoke, the uglier Adrian's face became, and the more frequently he looked at me with pitying eyes. I simply turned my face away, pretending not to see, and fiddled with the handkerchief on my lap. It was a slightly old light green handkerchief that I had used for exactly 3 years. Looking at the words that could not be spoken, the secret longing embroidered by my own hand on it, I felt as if a lifetime had passed. Those words were copied stroke by stroke from Adrian's essay. It was also after picking up this handkerchief that he began to express goodwill toward me. At that time, I was so overjoyed that I did not think at all, just diving headfirst into a beautiful dream that I thought was coming true. But now I suddenly understood. Clearly, I was never greedy and had hidden my feelings so deeply. Yet Adrian still had to pity me. It turned out it was because of these few words. He had long known my heart and assumed we were fellow sufferers. How ridiculous. After Adrian got out of the carriage, Arthur turned to ask me, did you have a friendship with the Prince Regent before? I shook my head. The words I had spoken to the prince could be counted on one hand. Where would a friendship come from? Arthur nodded, his expression becoming serious as he looked at me. Forget it. Anyway, that person is not someone we can afford to provoke. It is better to stay far away. Recalling the gaze of Dorian in the hall just now, looking as if he wanted to tear me apart and swallow me, I obediently nodded. But being reminded like this, I suddenly thought of a possibility. Could it be that he picked up the handkerchief? The palace maid was sent by him to find me, and he also gave the rabbit lantern. I looked down at my feet, only then seeing a mottled shadow inside the rabbit-shaped palace lantern. It was a piece of paper. The handwriting piercing through the paper was clearly written, truly ugly. Are you talking about the embroidered words on the handkerchief? Adrian's calligraphy is considered top tier in the whole capital, isn't it? How many noble families have trampled the threshold just to invite him to inscribe words? To say his writing is ugly, I fear only Dorian, whom even my father has to praise as writing like a god, could say that. Was Dorian looking for me for amusement? Viewing me like an ant in his palm, toying and mocking, then at some moment effortlessly crushing me to death? What my brother said was indeed correct. I must stay far away from him. The autumn sky was high and clear. Isabella invited me to go hunting. The invitations sent several times were all rejected by me. First, on occasions like this, Adrian would definitely go to please her, and I did not want to see him. Second, I was truly afraid of Dorian. In front of him, I was like prey cornered in a hunting ground. He enjoyed my panic but was in no hurry to strike. That feeling was even more uncomfortable than giving me a quick stab. But I forgot Isabella's personality. If she did not achieve her goal, she would never give up. Finally, she came directly to the Mengmaner, and without a word, pushed me onto the carriage. I clung to the carriage door, struggling one last time. "Is your uncle going?" Isabella waved her hand. "He does not review memorials all day, then he scolds officials. He is so busy that even I rarely see him." Arriving at the hunting ground, I looked around. Dorian was indeed not present, but Adrian was. He glanced at me with a hint of reproach, then quickly looked away. While Isabella and Arthur went to change into riding clothes, he circled behind me. "Why bother coming here?" I took a step forward, widening the distance between us, and said coldly, "Young Duke Pei, rest assured, I did not come for you, and I will not ruin your good deed." Adrian frowned slightly, lowering his voice. "You have never participated in occasions like this before. If not for me, could it be you came for someone else?" I looked toward the group of noble young masters gathering not far away. "With so many noble men of marriageable age here, can I not come to choose a husband for myself?" "You." Adrian turned red with anger. Realizing his reaction was too extreme, he hurriedly lowered his voice. "Celia, do not be stubborn. No one in this group can catch your eye." I turned my head to face Adrian's angry face. "Young Duke Pei, do you really think of yourself as my brother? The matter of choosing a son-in-law for the Meng family is not your turn to interfere. Before, he always told me which young master was unworthy, which family was a den of wolves. I believed him without doubt and felt incredibly lucky to find a good person like him. Thinking back now, it was truly a joke." I pointed casually at a back in light green standing with hands clasped in the distance. "That person looks pleasing to my eye. Is that not allowed?" This time, Adrian was so angry his eyes turned red. He gritted his teeth and said, "Look carefully at who that is. Is he someone you can provoke?" The man on the grassy slope just happened to turn around. The sunlight was blinding. I did not see his expression clearly, but it was not hard to recognize that it was Dorian. Did he not wear black? Did he not say he wasn't coming? My finger pointing at him hovered in mid-air. I hurriedly lowered it, running faster than a rabbit. Not only could I not provoke him, but I couldn't even hide from him. Isabella finished changing into riding clothes and was arguing with Arthur about who was better at archery and riding. "Dare to compete in a match? Forget it, I dare not bully a girl." Isabella's cheeks puffed up in anger. "Then let's split into male and female teams, me with brother Adrian, you with Celia." I waved my hands in panic. I am still clumsy at riding, and I know absolutely nothing about archery. Adrian originally intended to speak up for me, but seeing Isabella's eyes full of expectation, he turned his head away, silently agreeing. They were in high spirits and basically did not listen to me, noisily pushing me to change clothes and get on a horse. When I came out, the two who were talking non-stop just now shrank their necks like quails. Dorian was standing aside holding a bow. The narrow-sleeved light green riding outfit gave him a bit more youthful aura, completely different from the decisive and slaughtering regent usually seen. "Celia, hurry and greet the prince." Seeing me freeze, Arthur spoke up to remind me. I bowed to pay respects, greeting him in a small voice. Dorian chuckled softly, almost inaudibly. "Do you know archery and riding?" I shook my head. "Not very well, but my brother can teach me." He pursed his thin lips slightly and said nothing more. After my brother helped me onto the horse, he suddenly spoke. "Recently, there has been flooding in the south. I want to review the records of flood control from previous years. Can Scholar Meng present them tomorrow?" As soon as the words fell, Arthur's hand holding the reins trembled slightly. He had just entered the Hanlin Academy recently. Although he was only a compiler of the secondary 6th rank, one could not enter the Grand Secretariat without being a Hanlin. It was truly a position with a boundless future. Then this official begs to leave to prepare immediately. After bowing, Arthur ran away in a hurry without even changing his clothes. Isabella looked at his retreating figure and said regretfully, "It seems we cannot compete. Celia, get off the horse." But Dorian pulled my reins with one hand and said in a tone that allowed no refusal, "Why can we not compete? I will give you a head start of 1 stick of incense. The steak is Uncle's set of mutton, fat jade chess pieces. You decide." Isabella was overjoyed, turned her horse, and galloped straight into the forest. Only Adrian was slow to move. His lips were pressed tightly into a line, his eyes gradually darkening, looking back and forth between me and Dorian. Only when Isabella turned back to call did he regain his senses, took his bow and left. So only Dorian and I are left. I clutched the horse's mane, thinking hard but not knowing what to say. Fortunately, Dorian did not speak either, only leading his horse leisurely into the forest. Sitting on the horse, my eyes were involuntarily drawn to his tall and proud figure. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, covering him with a faint halo. This was the first time I looked down at him from above. Dorian, the person at the center of power. Perhaps no one had ever dared to look down on him like this. Thinking of this, I hurriedly struggled to get off the horse. But he turned his head, steadying me with one hand. His voice indifferent. "What is wrong? Maybe the prince should get on the horse, and I will help lead the reins." Dorian raised his eyebrows, smiling yet not smiling. "I know how to ride, and I do not have the habit of letting women lead for me." It seemed he misunderstood. Looking at that handsome face that truly terrified me, I stammered for a long time without explaining anything. "Forget it," I decided to risk it all, gathering all my courage to say, "Prince Regent, do you have anything you want to ask me?" Dorian lowered his eyes as if thinking for a long time before replying, "Yes." I guessed he definitely wanted to ask about being caught by him in the Imperial Garden that night. What exactly was the relationship between Adrian and me? During this time, I tossed and turned thinking, and finally could only draw one possibility. He was scrutinizing on Isabella's behalf, so he did not rush to expose it but found an excuse to question me privately. While my mind was full of thoughts on how to cover it up without implicating my family, he slowly asked, "Is there anything you want to hunt?" No. I froze and shook my head. I only heard him continue, "Get off the horse." Rumor had it that Dorian was moody. I hurriedly grabbed the reins to dismount. In my haste, my foot slipped. Just as I was about to fall, Dorian held my waist firmly with one hand. I flusteredly clung to his shoulders. Our eyes met. He had already placed me steadily on the ground. The faint scent of cedar on him spread around me, and I couldn't help but take a light sniff. Before I could recover, he had already turned and mounted the horse, a smile in his eyes. "Wait for me here. I will hunt the best thing to bring back for you." The horse's hooves kicked up dust. I watched his high ponytail flying in the wind, feeling a bit unfamiliar. Not the noble and cold crown prince, nor the gloomy and cruel regent, with a silver saddle shining on a white horse, galloping like a shooting star. Strangely, this appearance suited him even more. Standing there for a long time, I slowly realized that Dorian currently had no intention of questioning me. He seemed to still be treating me like prey to tease. But why did he refer to himself as I instead of this prince? When Isabella and Adrian returned, the attendants behind them were carrying pheasants and hares in their hands. Adrian even hunted a pair of wild geese, eagerly presenting them to Isabella, wishing to be like a pair of flying geese, never separating until their hair turned white. The meaning was indeed very beautiful. I suddenly remembered when he hunted a fox skin. He also presented it me like a treasure. There is a fox walking slowly by the riverbank. The fox has always been solitary, coming and going alone. It turned out that in the unseen world, everything had a destiny long ago. Isabella looked at the pair of wild geese with joy on her face. We surely won. Uncle has to part with the chess set I personally selected the material for and polished. Adrian smiled dotingly, his gaze sweeping over me then quickly turning away, seeming unwilling to let me see his expression. Suddenly, the sound of hurried horse hooves rang out in the forest. Dorian flicked his sleeves and dismounted. The back of his horse was piled with spoils of war, the most eye-catching of which was a purple marten, its fur soft and smooth like silk. Isabella immediately deflated, waving her hand. "It is meaningless. Uncle is proficient in the 6 arts, giving me another stick of incense would not be enough." Dorian regained his solemn appearance in front of others, saying to her, "Your riding and archery have improved compared to 3 years ago, not bad." A trace of sadness flashed across Isabella's face, but she quickly adjusted, stroking the marten fur she loved and couldn't bear to let go, saying, "It is rare to find a skin of this color. It would be very suitable for a cloak to match the lined jacket I made recently. I will take it, okay?" Dorian tapped her hand lightly with the tip of his bow, his expression indifferent. "Let Celia choose first." The smile on Adrian's face froze. When he looked at me, his gaze darkened slightly. Seeing Isabella looking at me with eager eyes, I did not want to snatch what someone else loved, so I softly refused. Let the princess keep it. I already have a fox fur coat at home to keep warm. Although the color was not as good as the purple marten the prince hunted. Hearing this, emotions hard to name swirled in the depths of Adrian's eyes. Dorian raised his eyes to glance at him, snorting lightly with profound meaning. I fear it isn't anything good either. Since it is not as good, exchange it. Hearing those words, Adrian was embarrassed and immediately lowered his head. Dorian's voice allowed no refusal, so Isabella awkwardly withdrew her hand, staring instead at the young lamb stacked below. Let's eat roast lime tonight. Just as dusk fell, Dorian ordered people to start a fire and set up a stove. Soon, the fragrance spread everywhere. Isabella and I sat around the campfire. She was still brooding over Dorian's chess game, while Adrian was attentively picking food for her. Dorian was indeed very busy, even with a little free time. People constantly came to report work. I stood from afar looking at his sharp features, feeling that the scene in the forest just now was not very real. Maybe I looked too long. Adrian coughed lightly, his expression a bit unusual. I came back to my senses, only hearing Isabella say, "My uncle is very handsome, right?" I did not expect her to ask so suddenly, so I answered honestly, "The prince indeed has an extraordinary appearance." The chopsticks in Adrian's hand trembled slightly, and his face slowly darkened. Isabella shook her head again, sighing. "Then you are not allowed to find him handsome, nor like him. Before, my imperial mother spent all day thinking of ways to marry my cousin from her side of the family to him. He said something about the world not being at peace yet, and he had no heart to think about romance between men and women. It has been several years, does he even remember my cousin's name?" Finishing her sentence, she mysteriously leaned close to my ear, whispering, "He is 24 years old now, yet not even a female mosquito can fly into his room. My imperial mother secretly shoved quite a few people at him, but he kicked them all out with a black face. Afraid she would be idle and send people again. He even used my name to make my imperial mother prepare all sorts of things. Sometimes he wanted to see her copy Buddhist scriptures by hand. Other times he wanted to eat the dried apricots she made when he was little. Didn't that tire my imperial mother to death? Here, wait until I go back and check the accounts, it will all be exposed." It seemed Dorian was used to teasing others. He dared to trick even the Empress Dowager into running around in circles. Thinking of the regent who held great power also being urged to marry by his sister-in-law, and even mocked by his niece, I momentarily couldn't hold back and burst out laughing. This time, Adrian's face turned completely black like the bottom of a pot. With a clack, he slammed his chopsticks down heavily. My heart skipped a beat. What did he mean by doing that? Was he not afraid Isabella would notice something unusual? "What are you laughing at?" A deep voice sounded from behind. Without knowing when, Dorian had returned. Isabella rolled her eyes and hurriedly said, "I was just making an appointment with Celia to enter the palace for company and play chess. Just girls talking. Uncle manages that too." Dorian raised his eyebrows, turning to ask me, "You know how to play chess too?" I answered softly with a yes. He said nothing more, flicked his sleeves, and very naturally sat down beside me. The cold scent of cedar on him followed the night wind, drilling straight into my nose without giving me a chance to refuse. This time, I couldn't even swallow a piece of lamb. Isabella didn't eat much either, turning to chat with me about childhood stories. "The first day you entered the palace, we climbed a tree in the imperial garden to pick fruit and fell flat on the ground together. Do you still remember?" I remember. That year I was only 8, and I still hadn't taken my parents' warnings to heart, truly treating the princess as a playmate. We climbed the tree together and fell down together. The palace servants were all scared out of their wits, rushing to surround her. "Princess, do not cry. Are you hurt anywhere? It is all the fault of this ungrateful tree. Shall this servant beat it for you?" After gently coaxing Isabella, they turned their heads, their eyes carrying a bit of reproach, looking down at me, who had fallen from a higher place. That moment of embarrassment, I thought I would never forget in my life. But I never blamed the palace servants. It was me, the ignorant one who only served as a background for the little princess who was most playful and insisted on climbing the tree. As for them, they dared not disobey orders. If Isabella had the slightest mishap, they wouldn't be able to keep their heads. Since then, I gradually understood that in front of a royal noble daughter, they and I were not much different. Only by clearly defining my position and being careful in every detail could I avoid making mistakes and implicating my family. Memories gradually faded. I responded softly to Isabella. "I remember. And that time I ran into Uncle's classroom to make trouble. Brother, you, and Brother Adrian all joked with me and tried to catch me. Only Uncle was calm and natural, while you stood aside anxious until your voice was hoarse. While the Crown Prince was studying, a reading companion like Arthur daring to play around, the crime of delaying the Crown Prince's studies was much heavier. At that moment, I even imagined a scene of a family of 4 wearing shackles and being exiled to Cheongjo. Adrian, who was mentioned, also smiled and continued. At that time, the prince already left us behind in the dust. At 14, he could debate with the Grand Tutor, questioning him until his face and ears were red. Arthur and I could not understand, most of the time we were just nodding off. Dorian didn't bother to pay attention to him, only pushing the plates of food placed far away closer to me. Seeing this, Adrian's eyes moved slightly, retracting his smile. Isabella suddenly asked, "But after your coming-of-age ceremony, why did you suddenly fall ill? Since then, you haven't entered the palace anymore." The calmness I tried to maintain on my face collapsed instantly. Rain falling patter-patter, the sound of fabric tearing. That was the past I least wanted to mention. Adrian also looked at me as if waiting for an answer. He had never asked, and I had never actively mentioned it. I opened my lips, my chin trembling uncontrollably, unable to utter a single word no matter what. My mind was blank, I couldn't even think of an evasive sentence. Isabella Shio. Dorian, who hadn't opened his mouth since just now, suddenly spoke up. Huh. Isabella was a bit confused, seeing only Dorian frowning and glancing at her. Can't food stop your mouth? Only then did Isabella fall silent, pouting with a bit of resentment. My fingernails dug deeply into my palm, risking everything to suppress the trembling. Out of the corner of my eye, there seemed to be 2 gazes constantly assessing me. That day I returned very late. My parents were waiting in front of the door. Seeing me step down from Isabella's carriage, they breathed a sigh of relief, instructing me, "Don't come back so late in the future." Mother was worried to death. My nose stung. I held her hand tightly. "Mother, I am very fine, you do not need to worry." I was truly still fine. It was just that in my dreams, someone seemed to be strangling my neck fiercely. When I woke up, my throat was dry and sore, and a patch on the pillow was soaked wet. But the days still passed normally. Thanks to Dorian, I no longer was distracted thinking about Adrian. My head was full of his eccentric actions. Adrian sent a few more letters. In the letters, he mentioned that my expression was strange that night, asking if something had happened the year of my coming-of-age ceremony. He also said he asked Arthur. But that person's mouth was sealed tight. I threw the letters into the fire, the rising flames instantly swallowing them, and only then did my mood improve a little. Not many days later, the marten's skin was processed and sent to my manor. Delivered along with it was the mutton, fat jade chess set that Isabella longed for. The whole body was smooth and transparent, feeling very pleasant in hand. I pinched the pieces between my fingertips and played with them for a long time before putting them into the box. This gift was too heavy. I definitely had to find an opportunity to return it in the future. But looking at the marten skin, I felt a bit troubled. However, Dorian was right. If the object was not good enough, there was nothing to regret, just change it. The fox coat was like that, and so were you. I immediately prepared to throw away the fox coat when Arthur happened to come looking for me. Seeing the dark circles under his eyes as if he hadn't slept for nights, I asked with concern, "Brother, what is wrong?" He waved his hand, saying tiredly, "Last time, didn't the prince ask me to organize the documents? I stayed up all night, and early the next morning, before dawn, I pushed the records from previous years into the palace. In the end, guess what he said? Oh, last night this prince already announced the flood control measures. Thank you for your hard work, compiler Meng, take them away." I worried so much these past few days I couldn't eat or sleep. Could it be he thinks I can't do the job properly? It seemed that on the night of the hunt, what he discussed with his subordinates was this matter. Deliberately pushing Arthur away. My mind was a mess, so I just casually comforted Arthur with a few sentences. Seeing I had something on my mind, he didn't say more. Looking at the fox coat I threw on the ground, he felt extremely regretful and asked to take it back to use as a footmat. Unexpectedly, the next day, Adrian used the excuse of finding Arthur to block my way in the backyard of the Meng Manor. He grabbed my sleeve, asking in disbelief, "Did you really throw it away?" When we were most intimate in the Meng Manor, he always kept a distance from me, respectful and aloof, afraid others would see a clue. Now he dared to pull and tug openly. I shook off his hand, my voice cold. "Why, does young Duke Pei want to take it back?" He was choked by me into silence. After a while, his voice softened. I did not mean that. It is just that before, you clearly cherished it so much. His words carried a few degrees of inexplicable grievance. I looked coldly at his waist. The scent was the same, but it had been changed to another exquisitely embroidered scent pouch. Cherishing it before was me being blind in eyes and heart. So young Duke Pei can just consider that I like the new and loathe the old. You. He choked up, then continued. Let's not talk about this for now. Recently I secretly sent you several letters, why didn't you reply? I flicked my sleeves intending to leave, but Adrian called me back. Celia. His voice was hoarse and low. Stay a bit further away from Dorian. One person after another, why did everyone tell me to stay away from him? Could it be that Dorian was truly a man-eating Rakshasa? I disdainfully patted the corner of the sleeve Adrian had touched, saying unhappily, "It is you who should stay away from me, that would be lucky." From then on, I made up my mind to stay in my room, not taking a single step out the door, holding on until the solar term of minor snow. On that day, the first snow of the year fell, snowflakes drifting chaotically, creating a magnificent scene. My mother dragged Madame Pei along and insisted on leading us juniors to Chanshu Temple. She said that sincerity makes prayers spiritual, so even in rain or snow, we must go up the mountain to offer incense to the Buddha. The two mothers had been close friends since they were unmarried girls, and the two families interacted very closely. This was also the reason I did not want to speak openly about the matter between me and Adrian. The mountain road was slippery, so I walked slower. Following behind Arthur and Adrian, I heard them mentioning recent changes in the court. A few days ago in the early court session, Dorian used the crime of disrespect to dismiss official Song from his post. Adrian's character has always strictly abided by rituals and laws, so he was extremely angry about this matter. Are the laws of our dynasty just for display? Even if it is just a breach of etiquette, a fine or a beating with a stick would suffice. How can he directly strip an official of his position? Arthur hurriedly lowered his voice. Official Song is not innocent either. Who in the court does not know he was negligent and derelict in his duties? He cannot escape connection to the flood disaster in the south. In recent years, the Ministry of Revenue has allocated so much silver to repair the dikes, yet the river embankments collapsed with just a kick. It was all loose soil. You tell me, where did the money go? Then he must also produce evidence. What is the censorate for? Are the people in the court of judicature and revision idle? The three judicial ministries could investigate the matter thoroughly. Why was it necessary to determine the crime so hastily? Emotionally, it chills the hearts of the subjects. Rationally, it is against the law. Seeing his good friend speaking more and more aggressively, Arthur lowered his voice to remind him. Keep your voice down. It would not be good if others heard. Official Song is a veteran official of 2 reigns, yet even he could not avoid it. I, a new top scholar who has not been an official for long, who knows if one day I will also be dismissed by him. Arthur also sighed with emotion. The holy mind is hard to fathom. What about that crown prince back then? Suddenly. But considering the affection from childhood, he would not treat you like that. Dorian. Adrian. Watch your words. Adrian suddenly realized his slip of the tongue and lowered his voice. Since he became regent, have there been few such matters? Rewards and punishments depend on his whim. The officials dare to be angry but dare not speak. The rain and snow became heavier, swallowing their voices. I walked behind holding an umbrella, goosebumps rising all over my body. Suddenly, Dorian's smiling question from that day flashed in my mind. What prey do I want to hunt? Brilliant as the blazing sun. Is Dorian truly as arbitrary and dictatorial as they say? For some reason, I did not quite believe it. We arrived at the top of the mountain at noon. Before reaching Chanshu Temple, we could already hear the lingering sound of chanting and the distant ringing of bells. Outside the temple, palace maids and eunuchs stood waiting. It seemed a royal noble had come to offer incense to the Buddha. Sure enough, Isabella lifted her skirt and stepped across the stone threshold of the temple gate, greeting me cheerfully. Celia, you came too. After everyone performed the rituals, my mother and Madame Pei insisted on dragging the 3 of us to pray for marriage. Indeed, dragging us along had a purpose. Arthur's face darkened, and Adrian's gaze wavered uncertainly, drifting back and forth between me and Isabella, his thoughts unknown. I took the opportunity to say the princess wanted to reminisce with me, so my mother could not say much more and waved for me to go. Waiting for Arthur and Adrian to obediently fall into the hall, Isabella and I sat under an ancient tree to watch the snow. This tree growing in front of the Buddha hall seemed to have spirituality, Even in winter, its branches and leaves were lush, shielding us from the wind and snow. But it was still too cold. I was freezing so much I wrapped my fur coat tightly around me, sighing. The snow is really heavy. Isabella handed me a hand warmer. I was just about to refuse when I heard her say, I am not cold. The snow in Wuhan is much bigger than here. I could even ride a horse and gallop through that wind and snow. Since she returned to the capital, this was the first time I heard her mention Wuhan, the tribe where she lived for 3 years, which had now been leveled by the Pei family's northern campaign. Seeing her expression remained normal, I gathered all my courage to ask, Princess, were you happy living there? The smile on her face instantly froze. After a long while, I heard her voice, devoid of any emotion. There were moments of joy. Her white breath misted her eyes, creating a blur. I suddenly felt that Isabella was no longer the same as before. But how could I dare to ask about the princess's painful matters? I hurriedly changed the subject. What did the princess come to pray for today? She closed her eyes and bowed her head, chanting devoutly, praying for the salvation of an old friend. May he obtain Bodhi in the next life, his body like glazed glass, clear inside and out, pure and without blemish. I did not understand very well. I only looked at her eyelashes, which still held clear tears. But very quickly, she returned to normal, looking up and smiling at me. I was just tricking you. Isn't it because Uncle Dorian said I have been obsessed with reading Buddhist scripts in the capital recently? He insisted on making me come to see what real monks look like to sober me up. I could not help but laugh, but a moment later, I suddenly realized something, and my smile instantly vanished. I stood up abruptly, not knowing if it was from the cold or fear, my voice trembling as I spoke. Is the prince here too? There, look behind you. Isn't he right there? Dorian, wearing a large black robe, stood under the eaves less than 3 rods away from me. White snow covered the red tiles and green mountains. Heaven and earth were a vast expanse of white. Through the screen of falling snow, I looked straight into his eyes. His eyes were bottomless, seemingly covered by layers of accumulated fog. I bowed according to etiquette. He raised his hand to excuse the ceremony. Between heaven and earth, we looked at each other silently for a long time. The sound of a bell rang out, and I came back to my senses, hurriedly looking at Isabella beside me. Fortunately, she did not notice. She was bowing her head in deep thought, her expression somewhat melancholic. I could not bear to disturb her, so I prepared to go to the guest room to rest. A thin layer of snow had accumulated. I held an umbrella in one hand and struggled to carry the heavy marten fur coat with the other, afraid of dragging it on the ground and getting it wet. A hand with distinct knuckles suddenly appeared before my eyes, taking the umbrella and raising it higher. You look very beautiful wearing this. The familiar scent of cedar and snow became even clearer in the cold air. I looked up, seeing only Dorian's sharp jawline. My first reaction was to snatch the umbrella back, but he saw through my intention, his voice calm. Let's go. Do not let your clothes get wet. I will not refuse anymore. Having both hands free to carry the marten coat is indeed much easier. The distance to the guest room was not far, but because of the snow accumulation, we walked very slowly. He always kept a moderate distance from me, the umbrella tilting slightly toward me, blocking the cold wind. What did you come to pray for? He suddenly asked me. I shook my head and replied, I do not believe in gods or Buddhas, so I prayed for nothing. Dorian tilted his head to look at me, speaking a sentence that was hard to understand. You used to believe. How did he know? But it was true that I used to believe, and it was even half effective. In the end, Adrian passed the exams just as I prayed, but from beginning to end, he never thought about marrying me. It was I who entrusted my heart to the wrong person. Even gods and Buddhas could not help. So now I believed more that success or failure depends on human effort. The prince must believe, right? I tilted my head and asked him. He replied softly, I did not believe before, but now I do. Dorian had the courtesy name Huizi. Thinking of his mother, who must also be a person who worships Buddha, I did not expect him not to believe in gods and Buddhas before. Seeing me look at him with hesitation, his eyes brightened slightly, and he said with a half smile, Do I not look like a believer? Many court officials curse me behind my back, saying my methods are cruel and I am unworthy of the 2 words Huizi, cherishing compassion. My footsteps paused, not knowing what to say. But immediately after, his smile deepened. It is just that those who said such words have all been dealt with by me. I almost thought he would be sad. I almost got tricked by him. It seemed I must remind my father and brother to watch their speech in the future. Arriving under the eaves, I stepped up the stairs. Dorian did not advance further, stopping in front of the steps. He was truly tall. Even after climbing 3 steps, I was only at eye level with him. Only then did I see that half of his body was covered with a thin layer of snow. In contrast, looking at me, even my shoulders were not wet at all. "Thank you, Prince." He raised his eyebrows at me. Thank me for what? There were truly many things to thank him for. Thanking him for giving me a generous gift. Thanking him for holding the umbrella for me. Also thanking him for clearly knowing everything yet not embarrassing me. Even though his actions seemed a bit strange in my eyes, now I could be sure he had no intention of exposing me. Thank you for keeping me out of the snow, and thank you for saving my face. I spoke very implicitly, but Dorian's expression changed slightly. He immediately understood what I was referring to. Fortunately, he said nothing, only handing me the umbrella and speaking gently. "Go inside, the heater is already prepared." He turned and walked into the wind and snow. We had only exchanged a few sentences, yet Dorian's robe was covered in snow, looking as if he was wearing a silver, white robe made of snow. I stood under the eaves watching him for a long time. He must look very handsome wearing that color, right? No, that is not right. What am I looking at? I hurriedly turned back to the guest room as if fleeing, my cheeks burning terrifyingly hot. It must be because the fire in the room was burning too vigorously, I thought. I leaned on the bed to rest, and soon fell asleep. When Isabella shook me awake, it was already pitch black outside. Although the snow had stopped, the road down the mountain was covered with a thin layer of ice. I feared we could not leave today. They say there is an ancient well behind the mountain that has dried up, sealing a Rakshasa for 1,000 years. Do we want to go see it? She was naturally the bravest but also had a childish nature. When talking about her eyes sparkled with expectation. I was also quite curious. What does a Rakshasa look like? Does it look like Dorian? We hurriedly ate a vegetarian meal, and Isabella impatiently pulled me up. Arthur and the others were already waiting outside, looking unusually constrained. Looking toward the corridor, Dorian was leaning against a pillar with his eyes closed. Hearing the movement, he opened his eyes to glance at me, then smiled faintly at Isabella. "Xiao Isabella, you are this big, yet you still think you are a child smelling of mother's milk." These words did not diminish Isabella's interest at all. She acted as if she did not hear, only loudly urging us to set off. Adrian walked in front with her. I stuck close to my brother's side. Dorian said such harsh words. I thought he looked down on this childish prank, but unexpectedly, he leisurely followed at the very back. Could it be he was also interested in the Rakshasa? Chansu Temple was very large. We followed the winding path, the surroundings becoming more desolate the further we went. The wind howled in gusts, sometimes like a roar, sometimes like weeping. The handheld lanterns were blown until they flickered on and off. I slowly realized I was starting to get scared. Arthur was even more scared, panicked enough to reach out and grab tightly onto Adrian's belt. Even being mocked by Isabella, he dared not let go. I intended to walk quickly to keep up, but the lantern in my hand suddenly went out. I seemed to stumble over some rubble under my feet and staggered. Fortunately, the person behind me steadily supported my arm. Dorian gave me his lantern. Neither of us spoke, but his hand did not let go. Instead, he changed to indifferently holding my sleeve. That feeling was like drifting in the sea and suddenly grabbing a piece of driftwood, making one's heart fear settled. But if there is holding, shouldn't it be me holding him? I asked him in a small voice, as the prince afraid too. There is no shame in a man being afraid of ghosts. Unexpectedly, Dorian looked at me as if looking at a ghost, and even laughed, saying, "What are you thinking? I am afraid that you are afraid." Oh, perhaps because I showed I did not quite trust him. He let go of his hand. I panicked and immediately grabbed his sleeve back, instinctively looking up at him. In the flickering candlelight, his eyes went dark then bright, the smile becoming deeper and deeper, not bothering to hide it. I just dragged him along like that for a distance, until Isabella let out a cry, and only then did I let go. Waiting for the two of them to light up all the stone lanterns around, Arthur finally dared to turn his head to look at me, clearing his throat. "Brother didn't forget you. Brother believed you were brave." The mouth of the dry well exuded cold air. Even Isabella felt creepy. Adrian volunteered, but after sticking his head down a few times, he shrank back. Isabella turned her head, smiling slyly. "Uncle, you are an elder, surely you are not afraid." Being called suddenly, Dorian's face sank, his brow tinged with a bit of annoyance. But he did not flare up. He walked straight to the ancient well and looked down. Everyone held their breath in unison. The surroundings suddenly became completely silent. Isabella asked in a small voice, "How is it? Is there anything?" Dorian did not look up, staring calmly at the mouth of the well. "There is something." The corners of his lips curved into a smile containing both teasing and malice, his voice lowering even further. "A face." Ah! In the chaos, it was unknown who screamed first or who ran first, but in the blink of an eye, everyone scattered like birds and beasts. Arthur was so scared he threw away his lantern and ran extremely fast. My heart pounded. I did not even have time to lift my skirt, knowing only to use all my strength to run after their backs. But compared to the other three, my physical strength truly could not hold up, and very quickly, I was left behind, until Dorian came from the side and overtook me, turning back to extend a hand toward me. He tilted his head and smiled at me with a bewitching charm. The moment I reached out to touch him, he immediately turned his hand, clasping mine tightly in his palm. Just like that, he led me, running desperately together toward the light at the very end. Back at the temple, everyone was still in shock. Everyone went to their own rooms to rest. The residual warmth in my palm was still there, carrying a bit of dampness. My heartbeat had not settled for a long time. I did not know if it was from being scared or not. I patted my cheeks hard, finally sobering up a bit. After washing and combing my hair, my mother was already resting in the room next door. I dared not turn off the light. Just as I was about to lie down, a flickering figure appeared outside the window. My heart, which had just relaxed, immediately hung up again. I was planning to find something handy for self-defense when the window was knocked lightly. Adrian's voice rang out. "Celia, are you asleep?" I was horrified. I immediately put on an outer coat, stood up, went to the window, and scolded in a low voice. "Are you crazy? My mother is in the room right next door." His voice was as small as a mosquito. "Open the window. I want to talk to you for a moment. What is left to say between you and me?" After a moment of silence, he spoke again, and this time his voice clearly carried a bit of hoarseness. "I saw it. Dorian holding your hand. Not mentioning that it was an act of seeking help in an emergency. Whatever happens between me and Dorian, what does it have to do with him? After running out, I did not see you. My first reaction was to think you must be very scared. I immediately wanted to turn back to find you." I lost my patience and interrupted him. "Enough. Isabella is sleeping in the front courtyard. If she knows you came to find another girl this late at night, your position as the prince consort will be finished." He still wanted to say something, but the footsteps of patrolling palace eunuchs could be heard from a distance across the window layer. I only heard him sigh softly and leave in a hurry. I stood silently in front of the window like that until the footsteps of the patrol gradually went away. Thinking hard, I could not guess Adrian's intention. Forget it, better to rest first. Just as I turned around, the window was knocked lightly twice again. "Do not come to disturb me anymore." A soft chuckle sounded from outside the window. I suddenly came back to my senses and pushed the window open. The window was low and narrow, forcing Dorian to stoop slightly. His handsome face was very close to me, the smile in the depths of his eyes spreading like a boat full of moon and stars. Am I that unwelcome? The cold wind poured into the room. I took a step back, pulling my cloak tight, and forced a smile. I did not know it was the prince. I thought it was a mountain civet. He said nothing, his two hands resting on the windowsill, his back tall as a mountain blocking the cold wind, causing warmth to instantly rise in the room. He just looked at me silently, as if there was a grain of rice stuck to my face. Being looked at until I felt a bit unnatural, I found a topic to speak. Is the prince deceiving people? Was there really a face at the bottom of the well? Thinking back to later, when he said that sentence, Dorian's expression was no different from my mother teasing a child. "It is true," he nodded, his face serious, his tone so solemn it did not sound like lying. A chill rose behind my back. Instinctively I moved a bit forward, at close range, facing Dorian's face, which was pursing its lips trying to suppress a smile. "You deliberately scared me." "It is true." There was stagnant water at the bottom of the well, the reflection was my own face. I pretended to close the window. He raised a hand to stop it, the corners of his lips curling up slightly. "Rest early." My face flushed red all of a sudden. I hurriedly closed the window. His figure printed on the window paused for a moment before leaving. That night, I tossed and turned on the bed, my mind messy as a pot of porridge. Dorian was truly very strange, and I seemed to be a bit strange too. In the blink of an eye, it was the end of the year. After the laughingstock caused by going to the back mountain that night, the Empress Dowager confined Isabella. Not only did she lose royal face and damage her noble status, but she also led noble ladies and court officials astray, and even dared to drag her uncle into it. Are you crazy? This was what Isabella recounted in her letter. She kept complaining about how boring the palace was and how pitiful she was. The end of the letter invited me to play chess. I intended to return the mutton, fat jade chess set Dorian gave me, but I closed the box immediately after opening it. Forget it, he is entangled in official duties, I might not even meet him. Isabella was very happy to see me, but there was really no fun in the palace. We played a game of chess, practiced calligraphy for a while, and finally had nothing to do, so we went to the Imperial Garden to tread on the snow. We passed the place where I severed ties with Adrian on the night of the Mid-Autumn Festival. Back then, I was so sad I could not hold back my tears. Old scenes, old people, but now I do not remember him anymore. Instead, my eyes uncontrollably looked behind the shaded trees. Dorian once stood there witnessing all my embarrassment and awkwardness. Isabella was sighing to me about being too bored. You usually rarely leave your boudoir anyway. Brother Adrian rarely comes to the palace to find me lately. Your brother is valued by my uncle, busy spinning like a top. There is truly no fun in the palace. Adrian used to like running into the palace the most. He seems very free lately. Either he helps Madame Pei bring things to my mother, or he uses the Duke's name to discuss business with my father. He visited 3 times in 5 days, always intentionally walking past the backyard a few times. After meeting him accidentally twice, I became alert and told the servant at the gate to report to me if he came. Out of sight, out of mind, I returned all the gifts he sent. However, I accepted the rare items Dorian sent: coral hairpins given as tribute from the South Sea, southern fruits stored in ice cellars. He even sent a message saying my handwriting was truly ugly and sent his copybook for me to practice. After looking at his writing, my handwriting that imitated Adrian's by 50% was truly unpresentable. After the trip to Chanshu Temple, I no longer avoided Dorian on purpose, but I never met him again. He seemed truly very busy. It was said he was rectifying the court recently. At the slightest move, he exiles whole clans and confiscates properties. The officials of the 6 ministries break out in cold sweat before presenting memorials. I heard Arthur say that Adrian scolded him privately quite a few times for being cruel and dictatorial. I pretended to be indifferent and asked, "What about the prince?" "Uncle. He forgets to eat and sleep. Except for bathing and court sessions, he does not leave the study." Isabella whispered close to me. Actually, my distress lately is also because of Uncle. Not only was the palace boring, but the atmosphere recently was not right. Uncle and the Empress Dowager seemed to have a dispute. Before she could finish, we met a matron serving the Empress Dowager. She bowed and said the Empress Dowager knew I entered the palace, and invited me to her palace to sit for a while. I could not refuse, so I went with Isabella. The Empress Dowager was nearly 40, graceful and noble. Beside her stood a girl in brocade, beautiful as jade and flowers. She held my hand affectionately, asking about this and that. Seeing my respectful answers, she smiled and said, "If Isabella were half as sensible as you." Isabella leaned on her, acting spoiled, her cheeks puffed up. Mother praised cousin yesterday in front of me, and today praises Celia. Indeed, only other people's children are good. The Empress Dowager laughed, rubbing her forehead. That child is already a married woman. Why are you still like a child? As soon as the words fell, the hall went silent as a grave. I was so scared I held my breath. Since Isabella returned to the capital, my brother and the others tacitly understood not to mention this matter. Isabella's face stiffened in an instant, but she quickly leaned on the Empress Dowager's knee, saying softly, "Daughter only wants to stay by mother's side and be a child for a lifetime." The Empress Dowager tapped her head lightly, her voice not angry but majestic. "You must marry." Isabella slowly sat up straight, bowing her head and saying nothing more. "I see the legitimate son of the Pei Duke is not bad. He has a dignified appearance, and the top scholar is worthy of trust. You must grasp this firmly. Moreover, he has some feelings for you." Seeing she did not speak, the Empress Dowager turned to seek my agreement. "Celia, don't you think so?" I could only hum in agreement, stealing a glance at Isabella. She was also looking at me. The corners of her lips pulled into a bitter smile. The helplessness in the depths of her eyes could not dissolve no matter what. It seemed she did not want to marry Adrian at all, but she did not voice any objection, showing her acquiescence. In my memory of the young Isabella, she would do what she wanted even if she got hurt, and she would give her all to get what she wanted. She was stubborn to the point of obsession. Today I witnessed that a noble princess also has times when she cannot help herself. But why did the Empress Dowager call me for a private matter between mother and daughter? Sure enough, the focus of the Empress Dowager's conversation quickly shifted to me. You and Isabella are about the same age and not betrothed yet, right? How about I make the decision for your parents? My family has a nephew, handsome appearance. Mother. Before she finished, Isabella interrupted sharply. My chess game with Celia isn't finished. I will take her away first. The Empress Dowager was a bit unhappy, frowning slightly, but did not continue. Isabella pulled me away very quickly. Before leaving the hall door, we bumped into a black figure. I had not seen Dorian for many days. The fatigue in his eyes was immediately replaced by gentleness. He smiled faintly at me, almost imperceptibly. What wind blew you here? Just in time. The marriage between you and Roku. Right. Dorian is 24, others have long-established families. It is time for him to have a princess consort. Is it the lady beside the Empress Dowager, her niece, Cherokee? I stared blankly at Dorian, seeing his eyes gradually darken and his jaw tighten. Isabella hurriedly pulled me away. Leaving the door, I only heard the Empress Dowager scolding sternly inside. Do you really want to sit on the throne of the master of this world? In the imperial garden, Isabella dismissed the maids and sat with me in the pavilion, looking at each other in silence. She was no longer chattering noisily but was unusually silent. I thought for a long time and still felt I should say something. Even if nothing could be changed, having someone to talk to was better. I held her hand and asked softly, "Do you want to marry Adrian?" She looked up, eyes red like a rabbit. No, not at all. But the Pei family has been noble for generations, and now he holds an important position. Marrying him will be very beneficial for the little emperor. As the eldest sister, what else can I do? Her face was full of helplessness. I momentarily did not know how to comfort her. Remembering how the little princess was pampered like the moon and stars since childhood, enjoying the boundless favor of her imperial father and mother. Yet she could not decide her own marriage. I could not help but sigh. That year you went for the peace marriage. I didn't expect you to still be helpless after returning. Her eyes moved slightly, and she tilted her head to look at me. No, I begged imperial father for the peace marriage. Remember the year I came of age, I pestered my brothers to go out of the palace to ride horses. At that time the horse was frightened and rushed toward the cliff. He saved me. That was the first time I met Nail. Nail, the youngest son of the Wuhuan king, was once a young hero with a resounding reputation. It turned out Isabella had met him before going to Wuhuan. I had never seen a man so unrestrained and wild on a horse. He said this capital is full of merchants and pavilions. One cannot even ride freely. He said if there was a chance he would take me to Wuhuan to play, where the grasslands are vast and one can chase the sun. Tears wet the corners of her eyes as she looked at the surrounding palace walls, her mind gradually drifting away. Even when I stood up to leave, she did not notice. The wind was a bit strong, and she was wearing thin clothes. I intended to find a servant to get a cloak for her. Before I took 2 steps, my wrist was pulled without a word. Dorian took large strides, dragging me to a secluded corner before letting go. He stooped slightly, his dark eyes meeting my evasive gaze. What did the Empress Dowager say to you? His heavy breath hit my face. I hurriedly turned my head away. The Empress Dowager wants to grant me a marriage. Dorian gave a faint sneer. She really wants to be the master of everyone. This is great disrespect. I panicked, pacing back and forth looking around, afraid of being heard by others, but was quickly pulled back by Dorian. Cecilia Meng, what do you think? What can I think? If Isabella hadn't interrupted. Do I have the right to refuse the Empress Dowager's decree? Dorian's eyelashes trembled slightly. I don't know why I always felt he was a bit nervous. My courage grew and I deliberately pretended to be submissive. It is not impossible. Her nephew has a dignified appearance. Even Isabella praised him. Oh right, I can be considered related to the prince. You marry the lady of the Chu family, I marry the gentleman of the Chu family. We are half relatives. Dorian's Adam's apple rolled up and down. He gritted his back teeth and spoke heavily. Just chased away an Adrian, now comes a reckless nephew of the Chu family. Cecilia, you are truly a sweet cake that even dogs crave. Chasing away Adrian. What exactly was he saying? But calling Adrian a dog was quite accurate. Seeing my face full of doubt, he did not explain, only sighed. The Chu family is not a place to enjoy blessings. Marriage is like a card in a game. In the Empress Dowager's eyes, your value is your identity as the Prime Minister's daughter, helping her revitalize her maternal family's power and seize back royal authority. A chill rose all over my body. Why did he dare to say everything? Associating it with Isabella, saying the Empress Dowager interfered in Dorian's marriage, and the tension in the palace recently. What role did he play in this? Was he a regent with ambition refusing to let go of power, or someone assisting the young emperor against maternal relatives interfering in politics? While I was racking my brains, Dorian suddenly adjusted my hairpin, his fingertips accidentally brushing my ear, making me shudder. His voice softened. Do not think about anything. Come to the palace less often recently. I nodded. Dorian said nothing more, just staring at me intently. He looked truly too tired. His long fingers massaged the space between his eyebrows. Every time he raised his eyes, there was a look of exhaustion. I could not help but ask with concern, "Is the prince very tired lately?" "A bit tired." He leaned lightly against the wall and whispered, "But seeing you makes it much better." My face flushed red. Afraid he would see, I decided to leave. Dorian reached out to pull me. He used too much force, and I was unguarded. By the time I reacted, my elbow had hit his hard, hot chest. It looked like I was actively throwing myself into his arms. I did not let go, and Dorian did not release me either. Our previous contacts were never as intimate as this time. I even felt his gaze flash, his face lowering closer and closer to me. I did not have time to think much, my heart took a risk, and I closed my eyes. But in the next second, Dorian let go. His expression returned to normal, only his ears were slightly red. He stepped back and said, "No rush. I will send someone to take you out of the palace." No rush for what? I had no chance to ask. He left me a retreating figure, only his steps were hurried and messy. Losing his usual composure, fine, truly a gentleman. Arthur used 3 months' salary to buy fireworks. After finishing the reunion dinner with our parents, he led me to sneak out. The carriage ran all the way to the outskirts of the capital, where a large crowd of childhood friends had gathered. Naturally, they were all his friends. Adrian also came, standing alone with hands clasped in the distance, looking disappointed. Arthur whispered in my ear, "I intentionally called Adrian over there. He is in a bad mood lately and argued with his family quite tensely. I have no interest in his affairs." But Arthur continued unknowingly. The Pay-Duke urged him to propose to Isabella. The Empress Dowager and Isabella also tacitly agreed, yet he refused to the death, like he is possessed. Clearly, he longed for it for so many years. Finally she returned, yet he doesn't want it anymore. I scratched my ear. "He is sick." Arthur nodded. "He is indeed sick. A few days ago when drunk, he cried and asked me what to do if the girl he liked before likes someone else now. How to make her change her mind. I thought for a long time and asked him if that girl had a brother. Becoming sworn brothers with the future brother-in-law first, wouldn't he be close to the water to get the moon first? The result was he cried even harder. With Arthur's emotional intelligence, it is no wonder he is still single at 23. I will go comfort him a bit. Don't go provoke his bad luck. He is like a firecracker now, he cries at the slightest touch. I nodded repeatedly, finally sending this big Buddha away. From afar, seeing Arthur approach and pat Adrian's shoulder, the latter looked at me and squeezed out a smile uglier than crying. It was truly very ugly. If he wasn't a handsome man recognized by the whole capital, I would suspect I was blind before. Everyone knew each other. The young masters gathered to chat, while the female family members they brought gathered to discuss popular makeup styles. I sat on the embankment, bored to the extreme, regretting immensely that Isabella could not leave the palace. Suddenly, I heard her voice, "Celia." I whipped my head around, seeing Isabella waving vigorously at me. Behind her stood Dorian, straight as a pine tree. "I thought I wouldn't see you until next year." I didn't expect that after begging my uncle for a few sentences, he agreed to take me out. Isabella linked arms with me, smiling until her eyes curved. Compared to the last time in the palace, she looked much happier. Remembering what Arthur just told me about the Pay family intending to propose, I reminded her, "You and Adrian will be fine." Her voice was light. "Uncle helped me resolve it. Mother probably won't force me anymore." Hearing that, I breathed a long sigh of relief in my heart, sighing with emotion. "That is good, you can be happy again." Amidst the noise of the crowd, I seemed to hear Isabella say in a very small voice, "No, I can't be happy anymore." I held her hand tightly, walking silently with her for a distance. When Arthur called us to light fireworks, Isabella volunteered to light the fire. We gathered together, looking up at the night sky with anticipation. In an instant, fireworks fell like rain, stars illuminating the mortal world. Initially, I stood next to Arthur. Suddenly, a hand reached out from behind, pulling me behind the crowd. Before I could cry out, I smelled the familiar cedar scent. Dorian held my hand indifferently. The force was just enough for me to pull out easily, but I did not. Instead, I held his hand tighter. At the moment the fireworks were brightest, the night sky was blindingly bright. I tilted my head, he was also looking at me, smiling wanly. Adrian was standing in front, the crowd seemed to turn back to look for me. Out of the corner of Dorian's eye, a familiar teasing look flashed. He lowered his head and kissed my trembling eyes. He did it on purpose. My palm was sweaty, I couldn't tell who was nervous. My heart pounded chaotically. He wasn't much better, his lips trembled even more than my eyelids. The moment the night sky returned to silence and darkness, we tacitly widened the distance. Looking up, Adrian was still looking at me, looking dazed. Dorian noticed my gaze and secretly scratched my palm with his fingertips, clicking his tongue softly. "Why aren't your eyes growing on him?" I pushed him away and returned to Arthur's side. Aside from us and Adrian, no one discovered the interlude just now. Everyone exchanged New Year greetings, and went home to welcome the new year with their families. Just as Isabella and Dorian got on the carriage, he suddenly called me back in front of everyone. "Cecilia, come here." Everyone looked at each other in confusion. I also stood still until my brother pushed me. "The prince is calling you, go quickly." I walked over. He poked his head out of the carriage curtain and took out a huge rabbit lantern like a magic trick. "Isabella, give it to her." Isabella was confused inside the carriage. "What lantern? Where did it come from? Did I give it?" Fortunately, separated by the wooden wall of the carriage, those standing a few steps away could not hear. Under a dozen watching eyes, I took the lantern, blushing and whispering, "Oh, thank you, Prince." He raised his sleeve to block everyone's view of him. His eyes instantly became gentle and deep, using a voice only I could hear. "Next year, I will welcome the new year with you. Only family members gather together to welcome the new year." The carriage wheels rolled away. Arthur asked me, full of suspicion, "Did the prince say anything to you just now?" I did not know how to answer, so I hurriedly pushed my brother into the carriage. Seeing this, Adrian immediately said, "The Pay family's driver has already returned to the estate first." Just before Arthur could invite him into carriage, I hurriedly said, "Oh my, this lantern is too big. Let's not crowd young Duke Pay's space. It is better for you to take another carriage." His hand resting on the carriage frame dropped powerlessly. Finally, he said nothing, just standing there watching us leave. On the carriage, Arthur's expression was extremely serious. He stole glances at me several times, wanting to speak but stopping. I thought he had noticed some clue, so I said, "Brother, do you want to say something?" If Arthur suspected, I did not intend to hide it from him anymore. Unexpectedly, the rims of his eyes turned red. "Celia, I have to tell you something. You must prepare yourself mentally. Just now, Adrian told me that the beast from Duke Wen's estate seems to have returned." My head exploded with a boom. My breathing became chaotic instantly. No matter how Arthur patted my back, I could not regulate it. After a long while, I managed to squeeze a question through my trembling teeth. "How is that possible? The Wen family promised they would never let him return to the capital. The Wen family is very powerful now, and is heavily relied upon by the Empress Dowager. But rest assured, when we get home, I will discuss it with father. After the new year, I will enter the palace to beg that person. Even if I have to risk my official career, I will drive him out of the capital." I closed my eyes in pain and asked, "The Empress Dowager? She will not be easy to talk to because of the Wen family's military power." "No. I will go beg Dorian." I almost screamed aloud. "You cannot let him know." Arthur's face looked extremely ugly as he said hoarsely, "He already knows." My tears instantly poured out. My parents hid this matter very tightly for the sake of my reputation. Besides the Meng family and the Wen family, even Adrian did not know. Why did he know? The person I least wanted to know was him. Fragmented memories flashed in my mind: the broken umbrella, the disgusting touches that made one nauseous, and the groaning pleas of that man. Darkness fell before my eyes, and I completely lost consciousness. I dreamed a very long dream. Climbing trees to pick fruit, the rabbit lantern, a forgotten childhood. Then came the winter of my coming-of-age ceremony. As usual, I entered the palace, only to hear the matron beside Isabella say that Adrian and Arthur had secretly taken her out of the palace to ride horses. I was long accustomed to being left behind, so I sat blankly in her palace for a very long time. Returning too early would make my parents suspicious, and I was afraid they would take their anger out on Arthur. I waited for a while until it was almost dusk, and a light rain began to fall. At the palace gate, I met Wen Yi, the only son of Duke Wen. He was once a classmate of Dorian, later expelled by Dorian because of his stubborn and pathological personality. He said, "Celia, you led Isabella out of the palace, right? I will take you to find her." I politely refused, only saying I wanted to return to the Meng Manor. The Meng family's carriage, which was originally parked in front of the palace, had disappeared somewhere, so I opened my umbrella and walked home. Later, he blocked me, stepping closer and closer, forcing me into a deep alley with no way out. He trampled my umbrella. A pair of hands crawled all over my body like venomous snakes. I could not escape, begging him desperately. He leaned close to my ear, whispering in a voice that made people vomit, "Celia, none of them see you, only I do. Compared to Isabella, I like you more." The last thing that appeared in the dream was Arthur's bloodshot eyes and his choked apology. "It is all my fault. It is all my fault for never taking you with me." Oh right, that day he seemed to be wearing a black cloak, wrapping my body, hugging me tightly. I was in a coma for 3 days and 3 nights. My mother sat by the bed wiping tears ceaselessly. Arthur and my father paced back and forth discussing countermeasures. The new year was supposed to be joyous and lively, but it was ruined by me. The Wen family was originally a Nil family holding military power. Now with the Empress Dowager backing them, their power was growing larger and larger. "Father, do not act rashly. At worst, I will go kill that beast. Fighting to the death, what nonsense are you talking about? What about your sister's reputation? Do you think I was afraid of the Wen family's power back then? If you kill Wen Yi, will the Wen family let it go? Do you want the whole world to know, so your sister can never raise her head again?" It turned out my father, an old man whose mouth was always full of benevolence, righteousness, and morality, also had times when he cursed so rudely. I sat up weakly and chased them out. Seeing my pale face, Arthur used his sleeve to cover his red eyes and said, "Just rest well. I will help you resolve it properly." Though we were a brother and sister who were not very close originally, as we gradually grew up, the stubborn teenager of those years unknowingly became a big tree sheltering me. I forced a smile. "I am fine, I am still okay." From then on, I used illness as an excuse not to see anyone. I even refused Isabella's invitations. The maid brought a letter into the room. I looked at the blank envelope with no words on the outside and almost burst into tears. Dorian never signed his name. Actually, I missed him a little. Full of anticipation, I opened the letter, but the moment I saw the content, I almost forgot to breathe. "Celia, do you miss me? Long time no see." It was not Dorian's handwriting. I hurriedly threw the paper away, washing my hands over and over, yet still feeling unclean. That beast still refused to let me go. I did not tell my family about receiving the private letter. I could not really let Arthur trade his life for me. As long as I did not go out, I should be fine, right? On the 6th day of the new year, the Empress Dowager deliberately summoned me to the palace. At this precise moment, the matron delivering the decree instructed that no one was allowed to accompany me. My father angrily cursed her as an old witch. My mother insisted on following me into the palace no matter what. Arthur said, "Do not go. Wait until tomorrow when the holiday ends. I will go into the palace to plead guilty to the Prince Regent. I will ask for a decree to bear all punishments." I told them to rest assured. The carriage would take me to the palace gate, and I would go directly to find Isabella. With her there, no one would dare touch me. Before leaving, I hid a silver hairpin in my sleeve. Today, the eunuch leading the way bowed his head respectfully, his voice hoarse and old. "Please walk a bit slower, miss. This servant's legs are not convenient." Seeing him walking with a limp, I nodded in response. Reaching the fork between the princess's palace and the Empress Dowager's temporary palace, I said, "Eunuch, can you let me stop by the princess's palace to change clothes first?" He coughed dryly twice. "The princess is currently feeding fish by the Tay pool. She also said she has something to give to you, telling this servant to lead you there." I am sorry for the trouble. I followed him neither fast nor slow. Walking to a desolate place, I stepped forward quickly and stabbed the hairpin straight into that person's throat. "Wen Yi, the princess never feeds fish. When she was little, Isabella slipped and fell into the water. Since then, she never went near the water's edge." The man let out a weird laugh, turning around without fear, scrutinizing me with disgusting eyes. "I searched high and low and finally found you. My good sister." The hairpin had stabbed half an inch into his neck, blood gushing out, yet he seemed not to feel pain. "You dare to kill me. Your parents, your brother, the entire Meng Manor will be buried with me." Wen Ye had always been a madman. It was said that year he was beaten by Dorian and expelled from the palace precisely because he forced himself on a palace maid. I suppressed the fear deep in my bones toward him, keeping my voice steady. You think I dare not, you should feel lucky that the Wen family took you away from the capital back then. Otherwise, a beast like you would have died by my hands long ago. He laughed as if hearing a joke, leaning back and forth. That is why I like you, Celia. Others think you are a soft persimmon, but actually, you are a hard bone. The way you struggled that day truly made one's blood boil. Tesk, pity I didn't succeed. I stabbed the hairpin another half-inch deeper. I heard him pretending to beg. Good sister, I am truly scared. How would I dare touch you? What if Dorian comes later and breaks my other leg? He smiled cunningly. Do you still not know? Dorian is more of a beast than I am. He has craved you for so many years. Humph, I really should taste what you taste like. I felt a wave of dizziness, trying hard to steady my body, but my hands trembled. What do you mean? When you grabbed the hairpin, his face twisted. He didn't even want the Emperor's throne because of you, yet you are still deceived. Come on, if you have the guts, kill me. I am just a cripple, it doesn't matter. It's fine if you aren't afraid of paying with your life, but can the Meng family retreat unscathed? And what about Dorian, who is being stared at by the Empress Dowager like a hungry tiger? That old witch is waiting for me to die here, so she can plot to pull Dorian down from the divine altar. You see, clearly knowing everything, I still came here because I truly like you too much. Whatever Dorian wants, I must snatch away. Who told him to be high and mighty, always looking at me like I am a fly or maggot? If you want to blame someone, blame him. Before dying, let us be happy one more time. Like in a nightmare, he rushed straight at me, strangling my neck tightly. The sudden pain made my hand loosen the hairpin slightly. When his disgusting lips were about to press against me, I closed my eyes tight and gripped the hairpin firmly again. This time, I stabbed it to the hilt. The control on my neck finally released. Wen Yi reached out to hold his neck, which was spurting blood. How dare you? He could not speak another complete sentence. The moment he completely fell to the ground, I also lost all my strength. I sat slumped on the ground, my face and body covered in terrifying blood. Celia. It seemed someone was calling me. I looked up. I had never seen Dorian in such a disheveled state. His hair bun was messy, his face full of panic and unease. He kicked the beast's corpse away, slowly squatting down, lifting my face as if holding a treasure. His voice sounded even more trembling than mine. How are you? Are you hurt? I threw myself into his arms, bursting into tears, smelling the familiar, comforting cedar scent on his body. After a very, very long time, my mood gradually calmed down. I lifted my head from his chest, choking with sobs. Dorian, I killed someone. He raised his sleeve, gently wiping the bloodstains from my face. You did not kill anyone. Today you entered the palace and were stopped at the gate by Isabella, who was waiting for you. She dragged you to play chess all day. I froze, asking word by word. What do you mean? Do you want to take the blame for me? Dorian gave a reassuring smile, his voice deep. I am the regent who kills people like cutting grass, who dares to touch me. Remember to change your clothes later. I will let Isabella take you out of the palace. Isabella ran over very quickly. Dorian pulled her aside to say a few words. I only saw her eyes instantly turn red. Without saying a word, she pulled me away. Before leaving, I turned my head to look at Dorian. He pulled out the hairpin and was using his own sword to stab into that exact spot. Noticing my gaze, he stood up straight and smiled at me. He seemed to say something more. But Isabella was crying too loudly in my ear, so I didn't hear clearly. Returning to the Meng Manor, I told the whole story to everyone. Arthur was so angry he smashed 3 teacups, cursing out all the vulgar words he had learned in his life. Finally, he patted my head as if to comfort me. Good kill. My sister is truly amazing. I asked him with some worry. What about Dorian? What will he do? Arthur saw through the court situation better than I did. His face was gloomy, and he only said, he is in a difficult spot. There is something I never told you. He told me to hide it. Actually, the person who saved you that day was him. I nodded. I know. On New Year's Eve, I remembered everything. The black cloak covering me belonged to Dorian. I am sorry, Celia. That day I went riding and didn't take you. By the time the prince sent someone to tie me up and bring me back, you were curled up on the ground crying until you couldn't open your eyes. For your reputation, he told me to admit I was the one who saved you. I did not expect Dorian to be the one who did the deed without claiming credit. That night, I slept very uneasily. Waking up from a dream, the sky in the capital had changed. Duke Wen, the old official of 2 reigns, cried miserably in the court, saying that in his old age, he finally had a son who died without clear cause. He only had this one son. Years ago, not only was his leg broken by the young Dorian in a fit of rage, but now he was stabbed to death by him with a sword. The Empress Dowager, who had not appeared for a long time, lowered the curtain to listen to politics this morning, sternly declaring she would investigate this matter thoroughly. The officials followed the current, using the name of clearing the ruler's side, and attacked Dorian in unison. Crimes such as brutal indiscriminate killing and plotting rebellion to seize power were all placed on his head. The Empress Dowager pretended to wipe her tears. Dorian is a child I watched grow up. There must be a reason he killed the Wen family's son. I heard it was for the Meng Prime Minister's daughters. She had long been wary of my father, and wanted to use this opportunity to drag the Meng family down too. He offended this prince, he deserved to die. Dorian interrupted without changing his expression, further arousing everyone's anger. My father originally wanted to speak up for him, but afraid of implicating me, he had to stop. Dorian was imprisoned in the imperial prison. To appease Duke Wen's pain of losing his son, the Empress Dowager first punished him with 30 strokes of the rod. The Empress Dowager was truly cruel. She ordered the beating, and every stroke hit the spine. Yet he did not utter a single groan. My heart ached terribly, my tears could not stop no matter what. Why did he have to go to this extent for me? If it left a root cause for illness, if he could never turn over in that dark imperial prison, the more I thought, the more afraid I became. Tossing and turning, my tears soaked the pillow. The lamp in the room was out. I heard the sound of weeping suppressed in my throat. Suddenly, someone knocked lightly on the room door. I thought it was Arthur. Opening the door, I saw Dorian standing there with a pale face. The accumulated snow outside had not melted, and he was wearing very thin clothes. I hurriedly stepped aside to welcome him in. Hearing my father say he had injuries, I tried hard not to reach out and hug him. He seemed to see through my intention, spreading his arms toward me, smiling gently. You can hug. My tears flowed out again. I choked with sobs and pressed close to his hot chest. Liar. How can it not hurt? Clearly, I saw it. Blood seeped out from his back, creating a dark patch. Just looking at it made my heart ache thoroughly. Dorian hugged me tightly with force, suddenly asking, Cecilia, do you want to be the Empress? Was Dorian crazy? My hand, which was just resting lightly on his back, suddenly tightened. I only heard him groan softly, his voice full of reproach. He groaned softly, his voice full of reproach. Be gentle. I hurriedly let go, looking into his ink-black eyes and saying, I dare not, and I do not want to. I knew you wouldn't want to. But if this is the only way to save my life, we can just try. I have seen too many sides of Dorian, but that appearance of sitting alone on high is the loneliest. I am also crazy. For Adrian, at most it was considered going against ethics, but for Dorian plotting to seize the throne, I am not afraid either. He laughed at himself, playing with a few locks of my hair hanging down, saying, Everyone assumes I want to wear the dragon robe, only you believe I do not want it. They are all forcing me. Tonight, I truly harbored thoughts of treason. But seeing you scared like a little rabbit, forget it, I will not do it. Dorian spoke of plotting rebellion and seizing the throne as lightly as discussing a meal. Wet, aren't you imprisoned in the imperial prison? Where did you get the ability to escape the palace? I pulled at his robe and asked, How did you get here? Or brother opened the back door to let me sneak in. I am injured, so I cannot climb the wall. No, I am asking how you got out of the imperial prison. Cecilia, he smiled until his eyes curved. Only now do you think of that, you silly girl. He handed me a card written by Isabella herself, hugged me for a long time, and then left. Dorian did not lie to me. The Prince Regent, whose power tilted the court and the wild, indeed had abilities that reached the heavens. The next day, the ministers, led by Dorian, listed 34 crimes of Wen Ye and the Wen Duke's estate. The relatives of the Meng family were also named, and even Adrian submitted a memorial to impeach them. As for Dorian, he was already dressed in his official court attire, sitting in the Empress Dowager's palace, leisurely drinking tea. Isabella and I were also present. She seemed to have been crying, her eyes were swollen like 2 walnuts. The Empress Dowager had just returned from the main hall, her face full of fatigue. The moment she saw Dorian, the exquisite makeup on her face seemed to crack. Dorian, you truly have ability. Both the court and the harem have been infiltrated by your forces. Indeed, I did not misjudge you. The Empress Dowager is wrong. Where was I wrong? True, I lost to you, but for His Majesty, for the country, Risking death once is worth it. Dorian sipped his tea neither fast nor slow and said, "My way of tea tasting was taught by you back then." The Empress Dowager gave a cold sneer. "What is the point of saying these words to me now? Since my son was born, you have harbored the ambition of a wolf. Your crimes deserve execution of the 9 clans." Dorian stared at her distorted face and simply said, "If I truly had the ambition of a wolf, then when you used the mid-autumn assassination attempt to test me, I would not have protected your son. You knew. Then, why did you still lie?" The Empress Dowager dared not believe it, shaking her head continuously. "Impossible. If you did not have that intention, why did you not listen to my arrangement to marry into the Chu family? Why did you dismiss the old official song? Why did you recently make such a big deal out of rectifying the court? You were forcing me to become suspicious." Dorian's wounds had not yet healed, his face was somewhat pale, and even his voice was a few degrees weaker. "Sister-in-law is like a mother. When I was 20, I told you that there was a girl I would not marry anyone but her. At that time, you even promised to go propose on my behalf. I fear you have forgotten. When my imperial brother was still on the throne, why did he always suppress the Chu family? Have you forgotten? They are wildly ambitious, plotting for maternal relatives to interfere in politics. Do you think they are your son's support? With the child being so young, if I were pulled off my horse, you could only watch helplessly as he is swallowed whole and becomes a puppet." Old official song was corrupt, half of the silver fell into his pocket. Should he not be dealt with? Before, I was busy stabilizing the border, while the court was just an empty shell hollowed out by termites. When investigating minor officials, they would commit suicide out of fear of punishment, and we could never dig out the root. It does not matter if I bear the reputation of tyranny and indiscriminate killing in my own name. His Majesty still has vast imperial grace and a bright demeanor. If I do not sweep away this filth for your son, how can he sit firmly in this world?" Isabella and I were shocked listening to this. The Empress Dowager was forced back step by every word, finally collapsing on the ground, muttering impossible. Dorian bent down to help her up, his voice clear. "I never thought about sitting in that position. Not when I was the crown prince, and not when I was assisting His Majesty. I also do not care about reputation, before or after death. Killing traitors, beheading treacherous officials, supporting the new emperor, I only do what I think is right." Later I asked Dorian, since he was already prepared, why did he suffer a beating in vain? He was a bit sad, holding me in his arms and saying, "I thought she wouldn't hit me. When I was little and my imperial brother beat me with a ruler, she was the one shielding me from behind." Driven by desire, once standing on the opposite side of interests, people will change. The Empress Dowager, who easily believed slander, was sent to a nunnery in the suburbs to cultivate her mind. The noble families led by the Wen family were all dealt with. Before Dorian's wounds were even healed, he came to the Meng Manor to propose. The betrothal gifts delivered filled the entire courtyard, leaving no place to step. My mother looked at the gift list with a headache, saying that even selling 3 Meng families wouldn't gather enough dowry to match. Hearing this, Dorian waved his hand and sent another 36 chests of dowry. On the day of the wedding, I sat in the sedan chair looking at my family's reluctant faces, covered my face with a fan, and tears fell. Adrian, in silver armor, cried even harder than I did. It was said that he would set off today to guard the border. To cut off his thoughts, Dorian specially allowed him to come watch my wedding ceremony. After marriage, Dorian was still the capable, right-hand man beside the little emperor. It was just that, according to him, the child grew naughtier as he got older. Every time they held court, he refused to sit on the dragon throne and instead climbed onto Dorian's lap. "I hope we do not have a son in the future. He can't sit still for even an hour." I joked, "When you were 3 or 4, could you sit still?" "I couldn't." Dorian told the truth. Before being established as the crown prince, I was even naughtier than the little emperor. He suppressed his youthful nature, carrying too much heaviness on his shoulders. Only during that hunt did the wildness in his bones allow me to catch a glimpse. Of course, later on, he lived more and more as himself, returning more to his former appearance. Sometimes I couldn't help asking, "Dorian, exactly how old are you?" He laughed, pressing me down onto the bed, his lips and tongue hot. "Try it, and you will know." Dorian's side story: since childhood, I did not know what I wanted. My imperial brother coughed until he couldn't catch his breath, always pulling me to the front of his bed, his words earnest. "Dorian, this land can only rely on you in the future. I started school at 6. Since then, I woke up early, reciting classics and history day after day. I didn't understand and didn't like it, I just followed orders. A moment of distraction would be met with a ruler as punishment. Later, there were a few stupid reading companions. They feared me, were wary of me, and bowed and trembled as soon as they saw me. During breaks, they gathered far away from me to fight crickets. Imperial brother said, "You were born different from them." It seemed my fate was not good. Later, I met Cilia Meng. She always lagged at the end of the crowd, running pit-pat to catch up, and then getting left behind again. Where did such a noble young lady come from? Timid and cowardly like a quail. But what difference was there between her and me? One sitting alone on a high platform, one standing in a dark corner. So I began to observe her, observing the grievances she endured without speaking. The skirt hem clutched until her hands went numb. Even the flower lantern she admired of Isabella's, no one gave to her. I called Adrian, who was carrying a rabbit lantern and looking clueless. Isabella hates rabbits the most, absolutely do not give this to her. Truly a little girl, just a tattered lantern made her happy enough to have red rims around her eyes. Then day after day passed. The day of her coming of age ceremony, I squatted on the high wall of the Meng Manor, secretly watching her. Why did the little girl grow up so fast? She had reached the age to be married. Married, it seemed I knew what I wanted. That day it rained. The idiot from the Wen family came to beg for mercy, pestering me for a long time before I chased him away. At this time, I discovered that Isabella, the troublemaker, was not there, and the reading companions were nowhere to be seen. The servant trembled and said, "Isabella sneaked out of the palace to play, she definitely forgot to bring her along. And she would definitely be waiting foolishly in the princess's palace." The rain was getting heavier, I wondered if she brought an umbrella. As the crown prince, I must have compassion for the subjects. But when I brought the umbrella, she was already gone. Arthur was not there either. To be safe, I still climbed the wall of the Meng Manor to see if she had returned home. From the deep alley came the sound of broken sobbing. The man's pleading voice gradually weakened, but I could not stop my hands no matter what. Only when the crying stopped did my reason return. I rushed to her side. She was huddled in the corner, almost losing consciousness. Just as I was about to wipe the blood spattered on her face, she suddenly cried heart-wrenchingly. I took off my cloak to cover her and ordered someone to tie up Arthur, who was galloping on a horse out there, instructing him not to say I saved her. I did not want her to marry me just out of gratitude. This time, Imperial brother was truly furious, making me kneel in the ancestral hall for 3 days and 3 nights. He was supported by someone to come look at me. Do you want to chill the hearts of the old officials? How can I rest assured handing the world to you? Anyway, I do not want it. This time he was truly provoked, a mouthful of fresh blood sprayed onto his dragon robe. At that time, I learned that the only army capable of fighting the Wuhuan tribe was the Wen family army. Now Duke Wen claimed illness and asked for leave. No one could be sure they could manage his soldiers. Then I will go. Imperial brother was provoked by me again, shouting intermittently, "If you go, if you leave, who will sit on the throne in the future? Your sister-in-law is carrying a royal hair, compared to you, it is even more legitimate." He sighed and said, "My time is short. Even if it is a boy, I won't be able to see his character in the future. I still want to hand the world to you." I shook my head firmly. "Then let me assist. I definitely won't raise him to be a useless person." "That is wonderful. I do not need to be the emperor anymore." But in the end, I didn't go to Wuhan. Isabella requested a peace marriage with Wuhan herself. Sooner or later, there would be a day of war. I did not want her to be more heartbroken then, so I advised her for a long time. She said, "Uncle, even if the ending is set, I still want to try once." I couldn't say another word of persuasion. On the day the little emperor was born, everything settled like dust. I knelt before Imperial brother, begging him to go to her house to propose on my behalf. Not a decreed marriage, but a proposal. Imperial brother said, "Wait until your sister-in-law recovers her health, then go. Avoid incomplete etiquette that might delay the young lady." Waiting and waiting, Imperial brother passed away. My sister-in-law held the swaddled child, begging me, "Dorian, now the border is in chaos, the court is unstable, and my maternal family is weak. The little emperor can only rely on you." Looking at her crying like a pear blossom bathed in rain, I thought, then wait a little longer. Wait until the world is at peace. Wait until the sea is calm and the river is clear. I will personally go to the door to propose. For 3 years, I almost never slept a full night. memorials that could never be finished, military affairs that were endless. She never entered the palace again, and I no longer had time to climb the Meng Manor's wall. Why not pray before the Buddha? Pray to see her once. Pray for my wish to be fulfilled. The Buddha only heard the first half. I truly met her hiding behind the Buddha statue, secretly watching her exchange vows with someone else. Since then, I no longer believed in gods or Buddhas. Isabella sent a secret letter saying, Wu Wan is recruiting soldiers and training horses, ready to move. Currently, the national power is strong. Whoever is sent will gain military merit. Who should be sent? Adrian. Since he didn't go to the Meng family to discuss marriage and used to like Isabella so much, naturally, he wouldn't miss this opportunity. I frankly admitted my own despicableness. Isabella could risk everything to try once, so why couldn't I fight for it once? A's for the man Isabella loves, I leave him to her to deal with. If she can't bear it, then I will let you both go. She went down to the dungeon, arguing endlessly with that person. One wanted to let go of everything and live in seclusion, the other was determined to take revenge and revitalize his tribe. Finally, when she walked out, her hands were covered in blood. She cried and said to me, "Those not of our race are sure to have a different heart." Uncle, I couldn't bear it, but I killed him. Faced with national hatred, love shattered upon touch. It turned out Isabella was the one most suitable to be emperor. Adrian indeed did not disappoint me. It was just that seeing Cilia Meng's sad expression. My heart wasn't feeling easy either. Forget it. Anyway, my external identity now is a cruel and fierce regent. I am not anything good. Isabella had nightmares every night, so I took her to Chanshu Temple to pray for that person's salvation. Cilia Meng was also there. She looked at me from afar, her face terrifyingly red. She even drew a clear line with Adrian, and seemed not to fear me that much anymore. I suddenly felt that the gods and Buddhas were actually protecting me quite well. Believing a little didn't seem impossible. People said I wanted to fight for power and seize the throne, wanting to wear the dragon robe and declare myself emperor. After many years of getting lost in state affairs and morality, I finally understood what I wanted. I possess a bright pearl, long locked away by dust. Today the dust is swept away, and its radiance bursts forth, illuminating 10,000 flowers across the mountains and rivers. Finally, my wish is fulfilled. This story illustrates that true love is not about grand, empty promises, but silent, unwavering protection. Celia spent years chasing the illusion of Adrian, a man who kept her in the shadows, failing to see Dorian, who was always her shield against the storm. It teaches us that we should never settle for being someone's convenient secret or second choice. Real love does not make you beg for validation, it empowers you to stand tall. Wait for the one who not only sees your worth when you are invisible to others, but is also willing to defy the world just to keep you safe. The story ends here for now. If it touched your heart or left you thinking, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Please like, subscribe, and share Raccoon Tale to help more stories come to life. See you in the next tale.